United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Roll call. Roll call.
Before the action item? Yeah. Roll call. We're both. That's the one item today. Okay.
Janet Evans,
Here.
Steve Summer,
Here.
Mike Golsolari,
Here.
Ashley Schuler.
Yeah. Okay, first thing we have going, we have to start with an action item. We're required to elect an officer for the remainder of the calendar year, beginning August 15th, for vice president. Jack Hargrave resigned and he was our vice president. So now we need to replace him before we start the meeting. Do we have any discussions that we want to have on which one of us or vice, well, not me.
I'd be okay with it.
Okay.
I think Mike Slurry is already a signer
Mhm.
and has filled the role before, so it's a good idea.
Yeah, if
For
somebody
Mike
wants
Slurry.
to make a motion for Mike.
I move we elect Mike Solari, Vice President.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Ashley Schuler,
Aye.
Steve Summer,
Aye.
Janet Evans,
Aye.
Mike Golsolari.
Aye.
Okay. Now we have public comment that is for anything that is not on the agenda. Do we have anyone for public comment? Steve?
Steve Soderquist, good morning.
Good morning.
The intersection of Shelter Cove Road and Upper Pacific Drive, there's a sign that has a lighthouse and a map under it. It's working.
Just click the button on
Hit the button underneath the
this.
stem there. There you go.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a picture of a lighthouse, and there used to be a picture of a map. Now there's a sign over the map.
Mhm.
It was better when there was just a map. And comment number 2, if we mow the baseball field, the baseball players will come.
Okay.
Oh, Harlan.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Arlen Reed, longtime resident. Two things. We were talking about the fireworks display at the last meeting. So I brought it up to the board of SCOA that we are going to have a quad with trash pickups during it. So try to get that in the bud.
Oh.
So we'll be cruising back and forth,
Wonderful.
collecting that, but I'd like to, if you guys could help out on disposal of the garbage, would be appreciated. Maybe we could do a 50-50 split on that or something. Something to consider. And then also, I mentioned last month that whole 9 sprinkler system is not working. It's still not working. It's been a month later. I know when I'm watering and my sprinkler systems go out and my bill gets all, I take care of it. And it feels like, again, it's not my money. So let's not take care of it. But I brought it up at a meeting, and I think that should be, everybody should be on, take a note, maybe, possibly. That's it. Thanks.
We noted.
Okay, moving along to the consent calendar. At the minutes and the bills. I have a couple questions. Valley Pacific Petroleum Services, is that fairly typical, the 17,000? And is that for diesel fuel or is it,
Yeah,
Gas?
that's our generator diesel fuel primarily. I think all the PG&E outages we've been having, generators been running a lot more than usual.
oh, yeah,
So there's an increase in fuel cost.
yeah, okay. And then I see we've got PG&E bill, but obviously we can't, unfortunately, probably with our contract, we can't back charge them for all the fuel we're using because of their system. Yeah, because we've got a distribution charge from PG&E of like 90, basically 9,500, and then an electric purchase, but nothing from WAPA, which I was kind of confused. I thought WAPA was the electricity and PG&E was the distribution charge, so I'm just kind of confused. One's 11,295 and the other's 9,483. But no WAPA.
I think the WAPA was in the paid fire section, but that was just a theme, so I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, the WAPA is due to, all the restoration charges. And PG&E, they're really costing us a lot of money. Shut down. Okay.
Okay.
So you got some questions too?
That was my main question on that. I was, with the minutes, we didn't have, I didn't see in here that it showed that Jack had resigned at the last meeting.
It was during public
Comment. Yeah,
we don't generally.
yeah.
Add something that, even something that important. Okay.
I got one question. Is the PG&E distribution charge based on usage? How much power they distribute, or is that a flat rate? It seems to be fluctuating. It's based on usage,
I believe usage.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll-
but it's gone down tremendously.
Yeah.
I like that.
Generator usage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but our diesel bill's gone up.
Well, I do, but we'll come to it later, so. Okay.
Okay, the other thing, again, the balance sheet, I'm not gonna harp on it too much here, but it's not accurate, so I think it ought to be pulled from the consent calendar until we can have accurate numbers in here. Because I've identified several things that aren't correct and things I have questions on. So I'm not going to bring them up because there are a lot of accounting things but I would like to have this corrected before we vote on, I want it noted that it's not correct.
Well, we might not have received the bill either.
No, it's not anything to do with that. The fixed assets are wrong and the long-term liabilities, I'm not sure what they are because it's the same amount every month. There's no change in it. And those two things, if they aren't right, affect what equity, which is what we believe the district is worth.
Right.
And if anything in here is incorrect, that's what we used to call in accounting the plug. It plugs it to equity, whether it's understated or overstated, I don't know. So I would, I just think, I know I'm probably the only one who really analyzes it, but
But this is something you brought to our attention for a while now.
since
So,
Justin was here,
yeah, so I
So,
think you're
it's-
right.
I'm just. Okay, so if no further questions, do we want to do a motion for? Oh, well, if anybody wants public comments, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well today, so I'm not doing real well. Do we have any public comments on the consent calendar? Okay. Can I have a motion?
Are we just doing the minutes?
Well, we're doing the bill.
Yeah, those bills, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for July 18th, regular board meeting, and the bills for July 2024.
Are you okay with the bills being, okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm okay with the bills. It's just the balance sheet is the only thing that-
Balance sheet?
Yeah.
I'll second your motion.
All right, Chris, correspondence?
All those in favor?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm going to turn this over to Mike here real soon. My head is spinning. Roll call.
Janet Evans,
Aye.
Dave Summer,
Aye.
Mike Solari,
Aye.
Mr. Shannon.
Okay, now correspondence.
Okay, first item, correspondence discussion is the Humboldt County correspondence, and we do have Lieutenant Josh McCall on the line here, Humboldt County Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant McCall, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, good morning. So I do have the stats. Oh, let me see here. Yeah. Do have the stats for June to July. Calls for service in the Shelter Cove area did go up a bit. We had 42 from May 15th to June 15th. Same period from June to July was 70 calls for service. It looks like part of that was just an increase in transfers to other agencies. So that would be like things like a transfer to fire, medical, or CHP. Those doubled. There was 10 of those the previous stat period and 20 of them this last stat period. Aside from that, a handful of 911 hangups, a few public assist and patrol checks. Those are 4 or 5 apiece. 3 animal problems, 3 general disturbances. We had a total of 5 either incomplete or 911 missed dials. 3 general investigations, a couple of follow-ups, a couple of restraining order violation type calls, 2 welfare checks, and then 1 each of alarm, domestic violence, patrol request, fireworks call, information, neighbor problem. We did have a search and rescue, and then a couple of suspicious circumstance or persons or unwanted subjects, those being one apiece. That kind of covers that. It looks like, generally speaking, kind of the middle of the week was the busiest time during this last month reporting period, with the afternoon to evening hours be the busier time of the day for that.
All right, thank you. Does the board have any questions for Lieutenant McCall?
No.
All right, well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item is the solar load study report from JTI Engineering. Just a little background on this one. JTI Electrical and Instrumentation LLC recently completed their solar load study of the district's electrical system. The goal was to investigate the impact of installing community photovoltaic PV and battery energy storage systems to supplement power usage, plus the impact of residential installed solar systems on the district's power grid and backup generators. And it looks like we have 2 representatives from JTI online, and they were gracious enough to attend today's meeting and provide a brief synopsis of their findings. The following is a report from JTI. I see Joshua Wenzel and Sam Rowe from JTI Electric online. Would either of you or one of you like to present a synopsis of the report, please? Sam. Sam, can you hear me? Looks like you unmuted your microphone. And Josh.
Yes. Hi. Like Chris said, my name is Josh Wenzel. Uh, so we performed an electrical load study to determine the effect of the community microgrid as well as residential and commercial solar systems that could be installed in the Shelter Cove community. We wanted to go over some of the advantages of going through with that. So your initial advantages are that it'll obviously lower the costs for everyone to generate power. Essentially your fuel is free in that case. And in the case of your community microgrid project, your fuel costs you would be able to run when you're off of PG&E power in that case, and not have to spend money on diesel for your backup generators, or at least not as much. It would reduce your reliance on PG&E for power. In the case of all of those solar systems, you would be able to lower the amount of power that is imported to your community and reduce everyone's costs that way, as well as reducing your overall carbon footprint. You're not relying on PG&E and their generation to produce power, and when you're running on your own systems, you're not using as much. You're not producing as much out into the environment. With your community microgrid project, it would consist of 3 sites with a total solar generation of about 2,200 kilowatts, which is enough for you to exceed the export limit that you have agreed with PG&E at this time. Primarily, that would be going into charging the battery storage systems that would be used. But should those be fully charged, you would potentially export too much, and PG&E could potentially shut you off. There are communication systems to prevent that and to potentially reduce that output, but that was outside the scope of our study. So talking a little further on your power export limitations, we performed our study such that we looked at your community microgrid first, and we found that on its own, you would be able to export past that power limit that PG&E has with you. So just based on that, we decided to set that aside and just look at residential solar adoption. That we found we created a model of your community and simplified it down to several percentages of solar adoption. At 0% solar adoption, essentially where you're at right now, you're bringing in approximately 800 kilowatts per month in your peak months, usually December or January. Once you start adopting solar, that number actually will go down over time because you'll start producing your own power based on residential or commercial systems. We found that once you reach a point of about 64% of residential solar adoption, you would actually begin to exceed the power export limit that you have with PG&E. So at that point, it may take quite some time to actually reach that point, but it's possible once you get there, you may want to consider renegotiating that agreement with PG&E. One potential issue that we found that could arise is that if you are running on backup power with your generators, the amount of solar generation that you could produce actually has to go down. Your generators require a minimum load in order to operate properly and to minimize any sort of damage that could happen to them. So at approximately 37% of residential solar adoption, you would actually need to shut down your generators at that point. you wouldn't be able to maintain that minimum load required in that case. It's possible that with the community microgrid that may be different, because with that, some of that excess power could go into the batteries in that case, but that was somewhat out of the scope of our study. So we would have to look into that further. As far as conclusions go from our report, like I said, you have a PG&E export allowance of 387 kilowatts, and at 64%, you would be just under that limit. Past that point, you would want to consider renegotiating with PG&E. At this time, it's actually unknown if the generators would be able to create enough of a grid to for your residential solar systems to start. In that case, a typical residential solar system is what's considered a grid following system, and it requires a signal essentially from your utility in order to start up. It's unknown if the generators would be able to create that, and it's possible that your residential systems may or may not be able to start up and feed back toward the generators in that case. We would have to look into that further if we wanted to see what would actually happen. So because it's unknown what would be the case or how that would work at this time, our recommendation would be, when running on generators, to shut down the residential solar systems or disable them in some way. And we recommend looking into a commercial load or generation shedding system so that that process could be automated. Right now, if you were to do that, it would have to be done manually, shutting down each one.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. Does the board have any questions? JTI, solar study report?
I do. Or I don't know, just one clarification, just so we're all clear. We don't get our bulk power from PG&E, we purchase it from WAPA. Just so that's made clear. We use the PG&E lines for distribution to bring WAPA power over to us. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Understood.
So
anywhere PG&E was mentioned, you could replace it with WAPA.
Okay, thank you. So basically, this study doesn't really include the number or the percentage of how much the district could, how much solar the district could provide if, let's say, like our buildings were all outfitted with solar first, so that the district would become net neutral in our power consumption. Is that correct?
That's correct. We were requested to look at residential and the community microgrid options. As far as I know, those were the only ones we were asked to look into. Looking at commercial systems is a little more complex. They tend to be a little bit larger, and we would need a little more detail in order to look into those.
It just off the bat, it seems to me that what this study is showing, I love that you have the breakdown of if we're 25%, 50%, solar 64, and 100%. I love seeing those numbers because that gives us a path forward to something to work towards. This analysis, and what you were asked as far as our NEM policy, that does meet the letter of the law of the Solar Act, but it doesn't really address the spirit of the law, which is to really encourage solar use in the district as a whole, not just for a few homes. So moving forward, you know, I think we have a lot to look at as to what will benefit the community as a whole. As a public agency, getting the most benefit to the whole community and not just a few houses. I think we're going to need to look at our policy and see how we can bring the rest of the community into this program. Because as it stands, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe historically how new construction has been operating out here in the Cove is that by law, new construction is supposed to be adding solar to every new home being built. And because the district hasn't allowed grid intertie back into our system, we don't have that. The new construction that takes place, those home owners or contractors, they are able to get a variance from the county and basically waive the variance of having to put solar on their houses. If we were to implement a policy that allows a select few households sign up for the NIM program, but everyone else can't, then the people that can't sign up, they will still be required to put solar on their homes, and they will not be able to receive the variances like they've been getting. And that to me potentially could lead to people basically saying, well, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for solar, but it could lead to people saying, well, instead of investing in our district electrical grid and getting an electrical hookup, we're just going to take that money and invest in our own solar grid and into our own personal solar system. And they really won't need the district for power. And so I see a loss of revenue that way. And so I'm very grateful that this study was done. I think that we definitely should have included in our analysis what it would look like to have all of our district buildings outfitted with solar first, so that we could become net neutral just within the district, start as a starting point, because again, that would benefit the community as a whole. So that's my personal opinion. I have more questions, but I think this is a good starting point, and thank you for your work.
I have a question about the generators, and I'd like you to clear up some things for me. My thinking is, or thoughts are, that a microgrid controller, which I assume is software and hardware combined, should be able to control the load on the generators, shut them down, start them up in order to maintain their efficiency. Is that reasonable, or am I out in left field on that?
No, that's completely correct. The problem arises that that would only communicate mostly with the community microgrid option in this case. It wouldn't have a way currently to communicate with residential systems. And that was the majority of what we were looking at as far as that solar adoption rate. If you do move forward with that microgrid program or with that microgrid project, then that would have communication with the generators and be capable of adjusting their output, either shutting them down or starting them up.
With that microgrid, is that basically a piece of software? Does that include things like batteries? Could the microgrid controller just by itself be put in without all of the our big solar arrays? Could it just be there for the home generation?
It's possible, but looking into that was outside the scope of our study. We would have to investigate that further to give a good answer on it.
Okay, okay. That was my question.
Okay, is there any public comment on this study or questions for?
I have a comment or question, Jerry Jackson.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Is it okay, Arlen?
Jerry, Arlen just stepped up to the podium. Can you wait till after he speaks and then you can speak then?
Happy to.
All right. Thank you.
My question is, my understanding actually was that we could only feed so much power back to PG&E. And I didn't know that there was a way to ask that we could give more power. I thought it was the infrastructure that can make it happen. So that's the question that I have.
Is it a technical limitation or is it a contractual limitation?
The limitation that the PG&E put on us, that's contractual limitation. The whole basis of the study is to find out, okay, how much solar through residential is going to affect the generators. And what Josh was saying is that at X amount, solar is like, think of it as a light bulb. You plug it into your wall, it comes on. Plug it into a little portable generator, it comes on. It doesn't care what the source is. But if the generators come on and then every solar comes back online, then it overloads the generators and then we're in blackout mode. And then we can't start again because it's just going to keep doing that. And then it's going to damage the generators. So the purpose of this study was to find out, okay, at what point are we going to be there to where we're going to have to figure something else out. We'll put it in a big giant battery bank or, or whatever else. But then we can't go to like they were saying, we can't go to every house and shut off their solar on generators, right? So it's, there's a lot of moving parts to this whole thing that maybe down the road we can figure out. But as far as being able to run, like when PG&E goes out for 4 hours in the middle of the day, like this happened last week when they were out every other day. If the generator won't run, we can't run the water plant, the lift stations, the wastewater plant's got its own portable generator, own backup generator, but then that would run, but we can't run the rest of the town. So we're going to be chasing lift stations with our portable backup generators on the trailers and stuff like that. If we can't run because there's too much solar pumping back into the system.
Is there any way to make the generator just work for our water, water and sewer?
We could go and do that, open up switches all up and down the hill, but then we're gonna have to do that manually.
And it impacts the residents. It impacts the residents who don't have solar, which is going to be the majority of the community.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I can't afford solar on my house, so I'd be the one screwed over. I'd have to go drag out my own gas generator and try to generate whatever I can.
Yeah, and then if it's in the middle of summer, you got fire hazard, and you know how Nick is on. But yeah, people, especially at the top of the hill. If it's hot in the summertime, I don't know how many people up there got air conditioners or whatever, but yeah, it's just all stuff we got to think about. And as far as what this was looking at, okay, so it's the SHATS, the GRIP grant part. We had them look at that, and then residential solar as well. So it's finding that threshold of where everything's going to work and play nice without having total meltdown.
So, John, reading the analysis in here, is 64% residential solar, the point where we get into trouble.
Yeah.
So 64%, that would be 400 houses here. So we're pretty far away from that, aren't we?
The other way, about 37%.
37% is it? Okay.
25% would be one or more generators would likely need to be shut down to maintain minimum load.
25%. We're talking,
It could be a business.
So that's.
yeah, could be one
700
business.
houses out here, whatever, 25% of that.
Quite a few.
Most commercial business might do that.
Yeah. One analysis looks at what they pull and it's a lot different. Yeah.
So then it's, and he was talking about the startup of it. Like you need to have a minimum or a minimum load for the generators to start. Right?
No, we have black start capacity, which is basically what happens is it goes out and then it comes back on. What happens is solar on your house, it doesn't care whether it's utility power or generator. It's a source. So, like I said, if you unplug a light out of your wall and you go plug it into a little portable generator in the back of your truck, the light's going to come on. It doesn't matter. That's the same thing. That easiest analogy for solar is it just looks for a source, whether that is the generators or the utility power. So once it gets that source from the generators and every solar kicks back online, then it could overload the generators and then possibly turn them into a motor instead of generator, which that means they run backwards and then pistons and everything else goes through the roof of the generator plant, and it's going to be all bad. So there's ways that we could probably figure that out, but I mean, that's going to be a whole nother thing on engineering on how we're going to have to figure that one out.
Well, I'm pro solar too, but I'm pro to make this a place to sell our power back to PG&E. That's where I'm at, just to try to make as much power here to get it that way. So see that you're worried about the generator, but you're trying to find another source. The source is send it that way, send it out of town, put it back in. So have the.
Well, that would work when we're not on generators. Because if we're on generators, it doesn't go anywhere but here. That's what I'm saying. If PG&E's out and their reclosers are open, then you can't send power back.
That is my understanding that the PG&E agreement wasn't just a contractual limitation. It was, we would have to upgrade the line from Garberville to here to take on the extra loading.
That's what I.
Yeah. So that was another limitation. And it was a lot of money.
And also I wanted to add, I think in the study there was talk about having to upgrade transformers, right, for different residences if solar exceeded capacity. There is some infrastructure concerns internally also. There are. Jerry Jackson is online, has a public comment. Jerry, you're up now.
Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me. I guess.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I have a couple of questions and then a comment. My first question is, how sensitive is this analysis to the assumptions that were made relative to the assumed load per household of 3 kilowatts per household per day? And also not only the assumed load, but also the assumed production of their solar system, which is assumed to be 6 kilowatts of power per day. But my thoughts are both those numbers are high. And I guess my question therefore is, how sensitive is this analysis to those numbers? Because if they are indeed high, and maybe I think significantly too high, it would significantly impact the conclusions. So that's kind of questions one. The second one, it seems looking at the conclusions that there's a green zone of 0 to 25% of the homes being on solar won't affect adversely the generator. So it's a green zone of 0 to 25%. Then it looks like it's a yellow zone from, I'm using these colors myself, a yellow zone of 25 to 50, where it says, you know, we may have issues here. This is a conclusion E. And then beyond 50, it says, you know, you just can't do it. It will threaten the integrity of the generators. So my question is, well, if we can go up to 25% of the households and still be okay, why don't we allow that? Because that's going to take a while. I don't envision Shelter Cove having 25% of its residences with solar power for a long, long time. And in other neighborhoods that I'm at that don't have these restrictions, you know, you don't see it. You don't see this huge changeover to 25, 50, 100% of the homes. And it will take a while. That will allow us time to study this better. And I would also suggest that we start replacing the generators with batteries. You know, the batteries could provide the same service, providing electricity when the main lines are down, but we wouldn't be spending, you know, maintenance costs. We wouldn't be spending for diesel fuel. We might even be able to get a grant. We might get a reduction on the RID's taxes, and maybe do a piecemeal step-by-step replacement. You know, if 25% is green, okay, start implementing it. You know, changing out and adding batteries as we can afford them. And then as it goes into the yellow range beyond 25%, hopefully we're reducing the impact to the generators because now the batteries are replacing them. So that would be a suggestion I'd have to this approach. And then the only other last thing is I saw where you're talking about the NEM. It does seem like, you know, only 7 homes out of the community does seem like a ridiculously small amount. And my question is, I'm assuming that's a constraint placed on us by PG&E based on its ability to buy back. Since they can only do 40 kilowatt hours. And I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you very much for listening to me.
You confirm that, John?
The 40 kW,
Yeah, 40 kW NEM PG&E.
the 40 kW NEM is basically what minimum for the state. It's actually less than 40 this year, 38.
Thanks. And looks like the JTI electrical engineers have already left. So, so any response from them, we'll have to wait.
They already left.
Yeah, they're offline.
So I might be late to the party, but if you're gonna ask a company like GTI to bring a proposal for ideas, you gotta understand who's asking these questions, and you gotta let them lead, because if you're not an expert in solar and battery, we can't just say, hey, do this study for us, and they go, well, we weren't tasked to do this other thing. So the approach needs to be, if you guys are the expert, what is the solution? Not like, here's one question we have for you. Oh, we weren't tasked to do the other study, so we're not asking the right questions, right? If that's the way it went down, I'm not sure. So you hire an expert to say, hey, what is the solution in your opinion? How do we do this? In my opinion, what is the amount of battery load that we need, you know, to meet the requirements? That should be the starting point, and then can we work from there as a financially feasible? Batteries and solar panels are dropping exponentially in price. The cost is getting cheaper and cheaper. So at some point, you know, you can say, oh, people aren't going to adopt, but they don't, and then they absolutely do, and then the RED is kind of screwed because everyone can put in their own power. A solution, everyone's worried about solution, how many homes. You can do one-way systems where if you have a battery and solar, you can do one-way feed where the RED is basically a charger, it doesn't feed the other way. It's basically a backup generator to your solar home system. So if you meet your threshold of an X amount of houses, any houses beyond that have solar and require batteries, and the RED is a one-way charge controller. They can't feed back. That would stop the solution, but that's gonna take away revenue from the RED. Eventually, right now it's $1. You can install panels right now for $1 a kilowatt, super cheap. The batteries are getting cheaper daily. You know, a system 2 years ago was 130,000. It's about 50, 60,000 installed now from 3 years ago. And it's going to drop it's dropping 90% every 5 years. So eventually there's gonna be no incentive at all to RID. It's just gonna happen. That's just inevitable. So the best solution is to create a microgrid of batteries that can lower the rates to not incentivize people to do their own batteries. Because then you're going to be put in a position where you're going to try to create a law to stop people from putting in solar and batteries because you want revenue. And they're going to have a huge lawsuit because people go, no, you can't stop me from putting my own batteries in my house and not hooking up to the grid unless you want to start that law. That's inevitably what's going to happen. So I would suggest talking to a company, whoever it may be, JTI or whoever, and say, hey, what is the long-term solution? With the precipitous drop in battery prices and solar, what's the long-term solution for us to be a viable power company? Because pretty soon RED is not going to be a viable power company. It goes quick. I mean, so nobody had cell phones, nobody had smartphones, and then within a couple of years, everybody had them. Electric cars are taking the same route. Solar generation in your home with batteries is going to take the same route. And it doesn't seem like it's a long time, but it happens so fast. 5-7 years is pretty quick. And that's the trajectory we're on, where PG is going to be functionally obsolete. You can't expect PG to buy more power or buy back. They're not in the business of losing money. They're in the business of making money, and we're using their infrastructure to create power. They can't win. That's why they push so hard to make all the laws. They cut the feedback. Like last year, you can't get 5 cents kilowatt now. You still get 30 cents. You're using their infrastructure to make money off of them. They're not going to. They're doing everything in their power to stop you, and they're putting their own solar batteries in to make them. So relying on them to say, give us more, it's never going to work because they're going to fight, and they're a big, huge, powerful monopoly. You're never going to win that fight. So that's my. I think everyone should consider those switch topics.
Is there any other public comment? Nothing online?
I do want to just add, I agree with your analysis on that, Trent, as far as the incentive to be hooking up to RID district power here in the future. We're going to be looking at a major issue with that. And yeah, as far as trying to do a law to prohibit solar, that just wouldn't work because the whole state of California we're one of the last places to not allow grid intertie. And that's why we're having to look at, we've been not proactive in this manner. We've been more just trying to do variances. And it is going to cost the district money, though, to be able to implement more solar into our community. So more grants and more funding is needed. That's it.
Okay, then I guess I will move on to the next discussion item, which is district strategic planning. The regular board topic that we bring up every board meeting. So, brief background. Right now, the latest is each department within the district is developing their own individual draft strategic plans. These mini strategic plans define the responsibilities of each department, their role, and their ultimate goals for the future. These draft plans provide a direction for each department, and when combined, they form a blueprint for the entire district. So we attached some draft strategic plans. We're still working on some of the other ones. I think water, wastewater, we're still working on. We did provide electric, fire, parks and rec, and admin. And we'll present what we present the next board meeting. And future meetings will also discuss the possibility of providing a community an online survey to rank strategic plan topics. So basically, what does the community think we should be focusing on? For instance, solar energy, battery power. Other topics may include sort of maybe a list of 10 or so generic options that we can focus on, like clean water, green energy, parks and recreation opportunities, recycled wastewater, emergency services, and others. Once the community has had a chance to weigh in on what they consider their priorities, staff can then focus the strategic plan into these areas of focus. This will help with future planning and budgeting. So the recommendation is to continue to work with staff, for the board to continue to work with staff to develop the strategic plan, discuss topics in which to focus the strategic plan, and to present to the community in the form of an online survey. Any questions?
I don't have a question so much as a comment. These, I think, are pretty good. They're a plan to do a plan. There's no real detail in them, no content as far as detail, and that's okay, as long as we're starting to make a direction. And if I were 10 years younger and we were starting to actually do this like we are now, I would still want to be on the board. We have been a ship without a rudder as long as we've been here. And this is different. If we actually do it, we'll have a direction. So I'm all for it. I would like to see the details filled in, and I assume they will be within the year or so. But I'm sure I'm going to shorten what Kesha has to say here, in that it has to be, and we're assuming that it is publicly driven. The community has to drive all of this. It's, you know, one of the big frustrations I think people have with government, especially something like us, is that feeling of they do this and they do that instead of it's us doing it. Well, this is a chance for us to do it. We are the they. They is not, there's no they here, it's us. It's the whole community. So I guess what I'm saying, everybody here and everybody you know, get involved in this. You know, people have called this the gem of the lost coast for a long time, and it's not. Look at the buildings and look at the trashiness of some of the neighborhoods and lots. It just isn't. It could be, and we can make it that way. Well, anyway, before I get too wound up, that was my comment.
I would just like to say, yeah, this is a good start. I know we're going to be getting more into details as to what the larger projects we're going to be looking at for as far as infrastructure goes and Parks and Rec. I would like to, I do think that an online survey will be helpful, but I do think that we're going to need more community engagement, just like even with this meeting today, like, I don't know if you did this, Chris, but I know you had been putting out for the meeting, reminding people that there's the RID meeting and the link. I would suggest that when you do those reminders, like, let's public know that we're going to be discussing this budget plan. I think that will help, help rally people who care about the direction that the district is going in and would want to attend these meetings so that when they know that that's what we're going to be discussing in detail. But this is it's a good start.
I agree, it's a good start, but some districts have been doing things like workshops that include community members who are interested. And I think, I'm not sure where we'll be at when I come off the board in December, but I would really like to see that maybe that get driven. I'm not sure how they set them up or how it was structured, but to be able to pull community members into the planning process and have open meetings so that we get the input from people while we continue to focus on these plans, because there's so much we could be doing going forward in the future. It's not just solar, it's desalination or whatever we need to do, but just get people in here with their ideas. We've got a lot of people in this community who've got good ideas, and I would hope we could get people to attend and be part of it. So it's a good start. I'm pleased with that we're getting moving on it.
And if I could add one more thing, and it would also, like, by getting that community involvement, it would also give us, the district, an opportunity to really inform the community as to the state of our infrastructure and what is needed, and like really explain to them in detail, like why we're making certain decisions based on infrastructure, what's needed.
Yeah, and finances.
And finances, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a good roadmap to get us started. And also from community input, also input from our local businesses too.
Oh, yeah.
They know a lot more about the tourist industry and what's bringing people in and what's not. And our fishermen and everything else. So I think
Yeah, I agree. We need to get a good community involvement, a cross-section of people.
absolutely, absolutely. So we don't screw this up.
Is there any public comment on the strategic plan?
Jeff Philbin. I'm gonna say, yeah, I think it's a great start. But we need micro and macro. We need a 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1 year. I think we need a roadmap and let the community fill in the blanks, meaning direction. We want to go here. What else would you like to see? We want to go here, or we don't want to go here. But we need a map, not just talk. The talk is the problem. It's let's be proactive, not reactive. So I'm going to go back to Parks and Rec. We have to increase our revenue model, and that's one of the ways we can really make us more viable as a community. But if people don't know where the direction we're even going, so we need the ideas. We need to have ideas for discussion so that we know which direction we really want to go. And that in itself will bring on further direction and further discussion. So this big old micro thing of, well, we want to go here, but where's that? What is that? So back to Chris, I'm going to say a compliment to Chris. He is out there in our community, so he has interaction with us. Thank you. But that being said, we need also, so we have areas of discussion so that we can move forward and we can really make a viable roadmap or strategic plan.
Just to add to that, Jeff, what is being presented today, they do discuss, breaking down from what we wanted to get done in 1 to 2 years, 5 years, to more long-term, 10 plus. So that's definitely in the works.
I got a comment before we move on to public comment. Is this public? Was it released in the packet? The strategic plans or did only? So with these strategic plans specifically, we're looking at that larger map. You can't pick which county you want to go visit until you know which county or which state or which country you're at right now. And we don't even know which country we're in. And so that's where we need the community's involvement, the board as well. Chris is great, he's doing everything he can, but the board, superintendent, the community, they need to be out there telling people to get excited for this, to go look into it, right? This is everything encompassing. Every single district utility we have right now is reviewing what they want to do for the next, 1, 3, 5, and 10 years. We need to take it seriously. We need to have conversations that are longer than the golf course conversation when it comes to board meetings. And we need to meet about it. As far as committees go, I'm not sure we have to actually have committees about it, but this is a very in-depth process, and entities spend a lot of money hiring consultants for their strategic plan because it's where they're going to go the next 10 years. Everything we talked about just now in the JTI study, that should be in the strategic plan. That was in the GRIP grant plan. And I sat here, I didn't say anything about it, but we've already talked about this the last 2 years, going back to General Manager Young time, about what we're going to do with our solar, right? And so now we forget about a plan, and then we go to another plan, and then we piecemeal that plan with little parts of the last plan that we worked on. So this plan is only going to be as good as the input from staff, board, and the community, but we really need to put the time into that, and it's going to be the primary focus for our planning. If we start new projects in the middle of this, then they're not going to get filled in appropriately into the strategic plan. So it is a lot more impactful than we may think as far as where we're going, and what we're doing right now operationally could be overstepping that strategic plan. So, and we're not ready to even go into the projects. The project plans, for instance, we want a new water plant, that's a whole separate 3-year project plan within the strategic plan. And that takes, you know, a year or two of superintendent time to get laid out and consultants and everything else. What we're talking about with the microgrid, with the GRIP grant, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, we're looking at almost $50 million for that GRIP grant to create the microgrid that we're talking about to support, you know, being able to bring on as much solar as this community can handle. So those discussions have already taken place. We have a rough number. It's probably high now because the prices have changed. But we're doing a bunch of strategic planning with just, again, no direction and then capturing that. So I know I'm really excited for it on the fire department side. We're 4 years into a 5-year plan, coming off a 10-year plan, but just looking at how we work with the district as well is super exciting. And it's basically our one chance as a community to come together and set that track for the people that are going to be here the next 10, 15 years. We just need to really put time and effort into it. It's not just going to be staff that's presenting this. It's got to be a full community project.
Yeah, I agree with that. We don't really necessarily need a formal committee, but I think we need to do some, what they called we've all taken the webinar, I think, once or twice on this strategic planning and how it should be done. And I think they do workshops, and it's open and it's public, and they can listen to the community as well. And I think the survey is a great idea as a starting point. But then I would hope we could get community involvement. I know when we try to get community involvement in some things, we fall flat, but this is so critical to anybody who's living here that I would hope they would join in and come to these meetings if we can get them out there and get them agendized or whatever, so that people can come and communicate what they want and how, and ultimately help us try to decide how we're going to get there. That's important too. We can have all these ideas of new water plants and different things, but we also have to talk about and figure out how are we going to get to a brand new water plant? How are we going to get to these things? That's got to be part of the roadmap too. Is, you know, where do we go and how do we fund it? Because obviously this running around, like as long as I've been here, almost 7 years, it's just been reactive. And I think it's really time that we get proactive like this and get things going forward, because you can't keep running around fixing everything and getting by. I think we've got to do that. But it does need to be very much the community involved, helping guide us.
I wasn't aware that, is there a strategic plan that's been created? Is that a public document? So you guys said it, or
Just the outlines right now.
So
You can currently find it under the board section of the website, and go to the board package, it's included in there, or what has been.
I'm glad Ari's finally understanding this is what we need to do. I've been complaining for years that RD had no plan ever. And historically, from my perspective, the RD's been anti-growth, anti-development, anti-everything with the general managers that are you know, basically running the board, and the board's not running them. That's normally how it's supposed to work. And when the board has a bad manager, you can have quarterly reviews and you can fire them. You don't just let them hang around until they just quit and get their benefits adjusted. That was horrible. You don't like him, everybody knows we don't like him. No one will say it out loud, just fire him. You have the ability to do that. So the board has to take responsibility. I'm not speaking to each of you directly. Generally speaking, the board has the ability to make decisions and do things. If they don't do them, it's their responsibility. We elected you. You're the representatives of the community. That's why we elected you. You can't go, hey, we need the community to do this. At some point, you have to do your job. That's why you got the spot. If you don't want to do it, don't be on the board. Generally speaking, not directly. So I'm glad Larry's finally deciding to take some action and go, hey, we do need a plan. How do we move forward? Well, my opinion is we need a 5-10-year plans, but we need to attract people here. We need to be more proactive. We're talking about solar for 15 years. Oh, I don't know, this whole solar thing. And, oh, maybe we'll have a study. Oh, we didn't ask them the right question. What should we do here? We got to be a little more proactive and a little more aggressive as a community. Otherwise, at some point, RD is just going to be dysfunctional and go away. If you don't, why is it professional grant writers? There should be professional grant writers hired all the time. There's so much money available, but if you're not going after it and you're kind of passively getting grants, you're never going to be there. There's a lot of money available. There's a lot of ways. You know, we had an opportunity to have a clubhouse and they got rid of it somehow, convention center. Those are multipliers. Clubhouses seem to kind of multipliers for community involvement and community investment. If you don't create bases, then people don't come. It's just random houses around the hills and no services except for water, sewer, power. You don't get good high value citizens to move to areas. So I'm just hope this becomes a real thing, but it's, I mean, how come it took, how many years did it take to build this like tennis court? Money's been in the bank for 4 years, is it even a building permit yet? Whose fault is that? Somebody's fault. I blame the board. Like, it's not that hard to get a coastal development permit and a building permit. It's really easy. It's ridiculously easy. And it's 4 or 5 years in, we still haven't gotten it done. Is that how it already operates? I mean, if that's the way it operates, it's bad news. There's gonna be no RIP. The whole thing's gonna fall apart. If it takes 4 or 5, 6, 7 years to do basic things, like a minor grading and a little piece of cement in the field, it's so simple. I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna ask, but it's really easy. I mean, anybody that any development knows how easy it is to get a basic building permit or something really simple, especially when you have the money. Usually the money's the barrier, not the ability. When the money's sitting there and it can't get done, and everybody asks what's going on and no one can give an answer, kind of ridiculous. So why can't that happen? Why can't we move things forward? Why can't RID move things forward? What's the problem? You know, so it comes from leadership. The leadership is the director and the board. Those are the leaders of the community. So if they can't lead, the community shows up, we make our comments, and we go home, we come to the next one, we show up, nobody comes. If we can't get anything done in years, nobody comes. If we can't have a meeting time that's reasonable, people don't show up. Thursday, 9 a.m. it can
We're
be a
getting
little.
off topic here, and you've been going longer than the 5 minutes. So
Okay, well,
we would
this
appreciate.
is another reason people don't come. You have these rules, 5 minutes rule, cut everybody off, but then nothing gets done, so then people don't participate.
No, this one.
Well, I get back to the strategic plan, which is really nice to see that it's happening. And maybe this is all within the administrative portion. But I would recommend that in addition to having, a department level set up the strategic plans, plan for the fire department, for wastewater, power generation, a more global look at long-term trends, especially as they affect finances. For example, this was a very valid point raised earlier that solar costs are plummeting, battery costs are plummeting. It's inevitable that power revenue is going to decline over the next 5-10 years. There are demographic things happening. Birth rates are going down. There is the trends with respect to travel versus moving out of cities and living in other areas. So these are sort of big picture global directions. And of course, nobody has a perfect crystal ball, but that should be also included in the strategic planning. What's happening in the state, what's happening in the country, and how is that going to impact Shelter Cove should be part of the strategic planning.
It's important to keep in mind too that with us being an unincorporated county area, the county has to be a player in this as well, right? A lot of the economic development stuff that's going to be happening in Shelter Cove, the county, we need to bring them in as a partner. Supervisor Bushnell is usually very responsive, but it's something that we need to look into with all of our planning is what is the county going to do for us when it comes to parks, schools, roads, other things that we need out here that the RID is not in charge of. That also affects people moving out here from that. So, and that's something too that the board, you guys are on the board level of the county supervisors. It's more of a peer thing to be able to speak to them and have correspondence with them as well. One thing we forget about.
Well, then we'll move on to the Last correspondence discussion item is to consider the formation of a Parks and Recreation ad hoc committee. So there's a great public interest in the district's parks and recreation activities, including the golf course, the bocce ball court, the horseshoe pits, the nature trails, and the multi-sports court grant project, among others. Because of this high degree of interest, and due to the staff time it takes addressing these topics, it is in the best interest of the district to form an ad hoc Parks and Recreation Committee. This proposed committee can address these various topics in detail, allowing for district staff to focus more on electricity, water, and wastewater concerns, and it also provides for an open platform for the discussion. It is staff's recommendation for the board to discuss creating this committee, determine the number of board and community members on the committee, how often the committee should meet, and initial subjects of discussion. Staff can bring this topic back as an action item next regular board meeting. Are there any questions on this one?
Well, this does make more work for staff, but I do think it's important, it would be an important committee to form, as it really is, you know, the recreation is what most people see. They don't see our infrastructure. They see what we have to provide as far as recreation goes, the community center, the sports court, pickleball and such, and the golf course. In the past, when we've done ad hoc, when we've done in the past, when we have when we've done committees, we've typically taken one person from each of the nonprofits in the Cove, and plus a couple of board members and some community, like 1 to 2 community members at large that have been added to the committee. We have a little bit more nonprofits than we've had in the past. So I did just list out some potentials, and that would include a SCARF representative, a Pioneer representative, a SCPOA representative, perhaps somebody from the Golf Association. And we do have another new nonprofit, the Visit the Lost Coast Tourism group, that maybe they may want to have someone attending the committee meetings. And then I did also put on the fishing preservation nonprofit, just even though we don't really have, the district's not really responsible for fishing recreation, but it is tourism, and it's so I'm not sure exactly what we could do for them, but they might want to be a part of the process. So I've counted, and this is where it starts getting like a lot of people. If we included 2 board members and then 1 representative from each of those agencies or from those nonprofits, and then we added at least 1 community member at large, I'm at about 9 to 10 people. And that's a lot.
That's a lot, but then we might need to decide more about what kind of community involvement we want in there. But you're forgetting the airport. We need to have a pilot or someone representing people who are using that, because that tends to get forgotten as part of Parks and Rec. And it's a very important part of, I know a lot of planes on a nice weekend, we're having 25 and 50 planes come in here over the 2-day weekend. And I know they're going into the various restaurants and businesses here and attending different events. So we need somebody from that group. But I think it's something we need to study, but I think this needs to become an action item and get moving quickly. Because we need, I believe an ad hoc committee is supposed to contain 2 board members.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to have that filled. But yes, I think it's important to look at really how many people you're going to have on that committee and decide. We need to decide by next month, when it's an action item, how large a committee we want and how when it becomes unwieldy to have too many people.
And one thing with that, Jan, as far as like a pilot, and even with the golf association, depending on who the other nonprofits were to pick, some of those people may have that background. I know the Visit the Lost Coast tourism group, I believe they have some pilots in there.
Yeah, but we just want to make sure we're representative of all the various things here that are Parks and Rec, whether it's, some of the not, you've got maybe some redundancies on the ones that use a community center more often and, but I do think it could get to be
fairly large.
But yes, if you can find people who have interest in both areas, maybe a SCARF member who has an interest in golfing or look around at that. And SCAPOA must have people that are into other Parks and Rec that could maybe send one representative that would represent other areas. So I think if you could kind of run with that before next month and work with staff to figure out what's a nice size that would not get it too off in the weeds when they get talking about things, but would be able to continue. And my personal opinion is there should be no ending date on this committee. It should be an ongoing thing because again, Parks and Rec is very important to the people who live here or to bringing people here or visitors and tourism, what they can do while they are here. So I think it needs to be an ongoing process and maybe changing out board members or whatever it needs to be done. But I think going forward, you just need to make it manageable but representative.
And this will also be a benefit to our strategic plan and helping staff or identifying what directions we're going with recreation and identifying revenue sources. So I do believe it's important. So basically, you would like me to,
if you don't mind, if you can work with staff and Chris and Jessica, and maybe what we have to do to formalize this committee, because it should be agendized, announced to the public, and open to the public to attend, even if they aren't on the committee. The public should be able to be involved in it and come here and see what we do. But I think that's part of what an ad hoc committee technically is supposed to be. I don't know if there's any guidelines on what we have to do to formalize or to be an ad hoc committee, but I think it's a good thing going forward.
Yeah.
Discussion.
You covered a lot.
Okay. Mike, anything?
No.
The superintendent?
Okay, well, we will bring it back, work with the board, and bring it back to next time.
Do you have any public comment on? Pam.
Yeah, Pam Brenner. It's something I've never understood about the community. It's a small community with a lot of different people, a lot of different nonprofits, kind of heading in different directions. And I think if we could somehow, I brought this up at the Property Owners Association meeting many, many years ago and got a very negative response. I don't understand what that Property Owners Association meeting. I've never heard of the Golfing Association. Lost Coast Tourism is a kind of new concept. So there's a lot of stuff that is popping up. We don't even have enough people to kind of participate in the most important things. Yet people are spreading themselves into all these little grassroots movements, which I have no problem with. If you want a grassroots movement, that's fine. But I think it would be much more effective for the community if we could somehow bring a lot of these things together so that these various nonprofits work more together than work separately and duplicate it. It's just my opinion. And I know that some people serve on the same nonprofits. So yeah, I know how things work. I know the political side thing. I know hierarchical and all of that kind of stuff. But can't they kind of somehow come together, discuss what they do, and kind of also put that out into the community so we know what they're doing and what their purpose is. And maybe they get more support, and maybe as a whole, we'd be a lot more efficient. Thank you.
I think that this is, the intent of this is to bring people together and from each of those organizations. And that's kind of the intention of this. We do have a lot more, we have many more groups that have recently popped up. Basically, the nonprofits are there to fill in community needs that the district isn't, it's not really our purview or responsibility. But yet we need it for it to be a healthy, thriving community. And so, you know, the district has always worked with these organizations, and now we have new ones. We're trying to incorporate them. But you're right. I mean, I think on the nonprofit, on the other nonprofits, there probably could be some more better communication and working together. But again, we're not responsible for that.
Oh, no, I totally get that.
Yeah.
And just one more thing. I'm not in the community all the time, but I notice new people in this community. And I think there's an opportunity to bring some of those people in, welcome them into the community, tell them what's going on, so that we can get that kind of input, not the kind of same old voices who've been trying to beat down the door for 10 years and are getting nowhere. So, you know, there's a welcome part to bringing those that are buying homes in our community and moving into our community into all of this that I hope we don't forget as well.
I'd actually like to step up even if they're not. I'd like to personally have a park supervisor. As John and Frank, I think that it's a complete different division. It would relieve some of the pressure, especially on Frank, if we had a supervisor for just park and recs. And then I think that we'd have your, for the communication, that was achievable.
Ideally, we need funding for that too.
That'd be great.
All right, Chris, we move forward into the reports.
Okay. Move on to the general manager's activities.
Do you want to do the director's report?
Anybody?
Don't have anything.
Just briefly, I've been busy with the sports court project. I've met with staff and spent time looking at the cost analysis of the original estimate of the 281,000 and going over the original SHN plan, sports court plans as well in great detail. That'll be up for future discussions for future meetings. Met with Nick just to see how things are going on the fire department side and talk about the JPA letter that we'll be looking at in the upcoming action items. And also I've been looking for funding for the sports court costs that may exceed the grant amount. Like looking for grants that we might be able to piggyback off on, recreational grants that we might be able to piggyback onto this current grant. So far, I haven't found anything, but you know, I'm still picking up daily. Because that is one thing that, yes, that is in the budget, but that doesn't mean we have the cash for it. And so we are still having to figure out how we're funding anything over that grant amount because we don't have the funding for it at this moment. And that's all I have for me.
I worked on an accounting review, and I met with office staff doing the agenda meeting with Chris and Jessica. I have had discussions with GK regarding the JPA as well as accounting issues. And Tasha and I have had discussions on the Parks and Rec and how the committee and doing an ad hoc committee. So I'm busy with a lot of that openness.
And as for me, a lot of work on the board packet, work on the strategic plan. Administrative Superintendent Zoe Wilcox resigned, and new Administrative Superintendent Jessica Delver began work in July. Processed the annual CalPERS unfunded accrued liability payment and began the investment strategy for future funding future payments. Attended a Coast Guard memorial service at Malcolm's Park for the crash of a helicopter and the loss of 4 crew members in Shelter Cove 30 years ago. Attended meetings and planned on the grant-funded sports court project. Also worked on the grant-funded well sites improvement project, including filing progress reports to the county grant administrator and planning on associated infrastructure integration into our distribution system. Worked on job postings, worked on strategies for collecting on closed past due accounts, and assisted with planning and organizing in the community clubhouse. And move on to the administration department.
Well, this was my first month, so that involved the onboarding me as a new employee, and lots of training, still learning. We have been also working within the office to get information to an accountant to work on our audit. Last month at the board meeting, we initiated the SEP program, so I completed paperwork with CalPERS to work on that. We met with the library and the play group to work on the usage of that area and the setup of how it works. We attended sports court committee, prepared reports, worked on the board packets, updated the website, worked on the usual things like payroll and billing, updated the new annual utility rates to the billing and posted that to our website. Also included website posts for the new positions that are available, and that went into the newsletter as well in the newspaper. There was some research completed to comply with the California Division of Drinking Water, Lead and Copper Rule Revision and Lead Service Line Survey, which is looking at all of the older houses, or the older houses in our district that need to be looked at. There was the board vacancy that's been announced through the website and also in local postings and the newsletter. And notification had to go out to the Humboldt County Office of Elections for that, so that the appointment can get on the Board of Supervisors agenda, which will happen later this month. We ordered wood chips for the playground, most of them in the parking lot when we came in. Those will be put out later this month. There is, at the board's request, we conducted historical easement research. Another huge project that took place is completing the annual tax rolls, evaluating changes to the parcel within the district and providing the county with direct charges for property taxes for each parcel. There was employee reimbursements, digital archiving of board packets from 1995 through 2014. And one of the more exciting, or small exciting things I feel like was on our website, the pay your bill link is now goes directly to the page where you can actually pay. So it's a lot easier to figure out if you want to pay your bill online. And updating contacts with our enhanced company for new staff, and working through computer and technical issues with Emerald Technologies.
Okay, thank you. Frank, water treatment, wastewater?
As Jessica stated, the front office staff is trying to help us lead and copper analysis dating back pre-1986, I think it was 1996. For all the houses out here that may have used lead pipes in the past, so we can get that lead and copper staff date. There's money out there to change a lot of piping if necessary in the future. We had a couple water main breaks. We had a water main break from Vance, and we also had one up in the zoo on Wolverine. That was on a weekend, took up about quite a bit of work. A lot of customers all out there, so we had we've been doing PFA sampling with the CSU program and also with the EPA. They're only doing our water wells. They just presume that everything that's above ground has PFAs in it now. It's in the air also, so probably never made it through it. But if we're lucky, our wells will be good. As far as that goes, they're paying for all the sampling, so that'll be done in the near future. They still got to come back and do half our other wells. Production, they go up there and sample models. They have the GPS coordinates and all going into a map that they have online. Setting up. That'll be in the near future. That also for other sampling. We've got our clarifier drained out, and we're going to put a gearbox on the south side. That's coming in the near future. Bud was out working with Will House crew, paving over a lot of our patches in the roads where they've done a lot of service connects and breaks, so on and so forth. So all that taken care of, or a lot of taken care of. Some more go probably next year's budget, but other than that, we've seen usual stuff that we do, the contact cameras, filters, all that stuff. So, any questions?
With those PFA sampling, so is that also being done at Telegraph?
Those surface water they are not doing because they were doing it in everything. But it's around. So we're looking at the well specifically, see if it sleeps through all the deposits in the ground. It's the well water. Everything, everybody has PFA in them already, so we're just seeing where the water's at now.
And then with those water main breaks, so there was 2 of them. Do you have, like, how much water did we lose and combined?
The one advance, I believe it was around 38,000. The one into the zoo drained the whole tank, so 150,000. Plus the water in the line, so probably close to 180,000.
And that's all treated potable water.
So then we have to move back to San Antonio, put all houses, and wait for our vacuums to come back. We can take it 3 to 5 days. Notify the customers that they have boiler water. If they're gonna drink it, we get our samples back. Talk to them all, our call, and make sure they all know that the water's safe to drink again.
Are these water main breaks due, I mean, is it basically due to our infrastructure? Our aged infrastructure, okay.
All right. Move on to power generation.
So last month we replaced 5 poles. There was 2 planned outages on the tie line. Replaced poles. 5 unplanned outages. Took one of the trucks to town for repairs. Planned outages on Ridge Road and Hemlock. We repaired some old line splices that we found. Went to Corning to pick up a new truck and the admin vehicle. Installed a new radio in the truck, and then we met with the contractor.
I have a question. We've had a lot of power outages lately, and what I think I heard you say earlier, those were mostly PG&E induced.
Yes. Mylar balloon.
Okay, Nick.
Yes, we're coming off a busy July. Obviously, we hit a little bit of it last month. Our call volume is up as it normally is during the summer. The good news is that all of our apparatus are in service available. One, the only sign up that we have an older quad that we took out of service due to just lack of being effective and reliable. So it's going back to 2003. I just need to get replaced. So but we do have the new quad side by side that we replaced last year. The big news is our engine 5116 is still in the park fire. Good news is we hear they're probably getting demoed today. This will be day 21 for them out there assisting Cal OES on our mutual aid mission. Again, for the folks that weren't here the last meeting, that really boosts our out-of-district experience for the guys. So we can't afford to have a large fire in Shelter Cove for our firefighters to gain the experience they need to fight a large fire in Shelter Cove. So one of the big things is sending them out of the area. And we can only do that through our recruitment and our replacement of apparatus. So we have a full fleet here to cover our district while those guys are out assisting. In this instance, CAL FIRE through Office of Emergency Services. The other cool thing about that is the firefighters get paid. They get paid well. We are 100% reimbursed for that. And so there's an economy side of that. We've got 7 firefighters now covered this year to make some money. And then the district gets paid through the engine. So the engine 5116 is going to make about $48,000 in that 21-day period. So that's we did that last year. So we're around $90,000 on that engine over the last 2 years, just in the OES coverage. It's not kind of CAL FIRE coverage. So we're very excited about the program and maintaining that program while also being able to maintain district coverage for Shelter Cove. We are going into our high fire season, so it's the high fire danger. And the upper cove has been pretty much consistent. Obviously, the lower cove, we have the fog and the marine layer that comes in. It's been pretty regular. I would say we're below normal for our marine layer historically is what we're used to for this time of year. And as we go into August and September, we see less marine layer. And then September, October can be our hottest time of year. And we start getting our sundowners and our winds in the evening. So definitely more on edge as the fire chief going into this time of year. Our fuels are way drier. We've already seen larger fires in the Garberville area take off rapidly this year. And our guys were in Garberville assisting on that fire too. Big news is our grants are still going on. So the $6 million USDA grant, please sign up for that. The entire community are stewards of that project. We were one of the first projects approved for that. Our first community approved for that project. So we want to show that we're going to knock it out of the park. And it's funding for every house in Shelter Cove. So in our hazard mitigation plan, wildfire is far and away our highest hazard in the community. This is a huge help to mitigate that. So all 700 properties, homes, improved properties are approved for funding, and then another 2,800 vacant lots that are adjacent to roadways, those properties that I mentioned before, are all funded. So this project's only as successful as the community's involvement and signing up for it. Right now, we're in the sign up phase, and the people that want to come and get their properties work on. As we go further into it, we can be in the abatement phase, which where we were in 2001, where we can actually go and abate properties that were either vacant, absentee property owners that didn't respond back to us and aren't compliant with the ordinance that we already have in place. And it's very minimal treatment for that. It's basically remove the brush, limb the trees up 6 to 8 feet. We're not going and ripping grandma's flowers out of her flower bed or anything like that. So the team that we have from Trees Foundation, actually Tanner's one of the leaders of that right now. They're very capable. They're local volunteer firefighters. We're very excited about the results we've had so far. I believe we're almost 200 people signed up for it for houses and some vacant lots, but the majority are residential structures. And I think they've completed around 100 plus assessments of that. So we're well on the way to our goal. Our goal is 300 by the end of September, and we're looking pretty good for that. The second grant is the high liming that you guys have seen going to town. We have a CAL FIRE grant going on. It's just shy of $1 million for that grant. They're just about to turn onto Chemise Mountain and Bryson Thorn Road and do Whale Gulch and Whitehorn before the bad weather comes in. So that grant is 35 miles of high liming, 30 foot up, 5 feet on both sides of the road, and it will go all the way to Garberville and then around Whitehorn, Whale Gulch from basically Beach Road all the way to Redwood Drive. So we're really excited about getting those actually done now that they're implemented. Work's going well on that. Majority of our calls last year during fire season were EMS calls, so please don't hesitate to call 911. And also, if your family doesn't have it already, look into the air ambulance service, Reach Aeromedic Insurance. We are flying a ton of people out right now just due to injuries and capabilities at the local Garberville hospital. So if you guys have anything more than a sprained finger, there's a chance that you might get flown out in a helicopter. if you're calling 911. And that's something that we don't take lightly. We try to provide the best medical care to our community members. So a lot of that is getting them to a higher level of care than they have. We'll be continuing that. And then as always, we do our basic smoke checks. You know, we're going to start the chipper program back up end of August. We already have a bunch of piles stacked up after we finished our last chipper grant, which is a partnership with the county fire safety council. Chipped a bunch of piles in Shelter Cove, well over 500 piles. So again, we're trying to get that fuel reduction done to protect the large fire that it will happen. Even after these grants, we will have fires. We've already had 3 this year. But we want to keep them from being damaging fires. We don't want to lose any houses or lives. So, and then that's pretty much it. We're still doing smoke detector checks. So if you guys know anybody that smoke detector's not working, that's a big priority for us. We actually aren't giving them out right now, but we will come install them and change batteries if you give us a day or so notice. We get a duty officer to go out there and do that in your property. Any questions?
I noticed CAL FIRE representatives are also out here doing home assessments. How does that compare with our project fees foundation?
Yeah, so not to brag or anything, but our systems are much better, much more in depth. CAL FIRE does have a legal obligation. We are state responsibility area in Shelter Cove, so because we're unincorporated, CAL FIRE has jurisdiction of all wildland fires and fuel reduction in our area. Obviously, we've been really successful getting grants and the support we get. And we also support them with our fire department, but they are doing a prevention home inspection side as well. And that's actually a requirement to sell or buy property. It has to have a home inspection from CAL FIRE on the legal authorities. R1 is going to go to the grant. So you have to have a home assessment done by the grant folks for trees, the central space technicians, and they will basically get you on the list to have a contractor come to work at your house up to $3,000 work. So even if it's just to get your landscaping, and cleaned up and raked around your house, it's definitely worth signing up. Everybody's eligible for it. Good question. Good. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I will move on to the action items. And the first action item is a carryover from the last board meeting. To consider customer requests for variance of encroachment on electrical utility easement. This is regarding the 495 Seaport property, South Florida Pacific. So just a refresher background, on June 20th, 2024, architect Thomas Bond contacted the district to request a variance to build within a 10-foot non-standard electrical easement located at property 495 Seaport. District board members and staff reviewed the site. Staff conducted further easement research on historical easement requests as directed at the last board meeting. And attached to this is a list of historical easements. An easement committee was formed in 1993, and their research is also attached. And an updated letter from the architect addressing the board's concerns at the last meeting is also attached. I do see that Thomas Bond, the architect, is online. So the recommendation is to make a motion to approve or deny the customer request for variance of encroachment on electrical utilities. Any questions for staff or the architect online?
Thank you for pulling all that old information out. I know that took a lot of time from the staff to get us that information. But it appears that the 1993 committee found that it was appropriate to allow encroachment agreement to be used for porches, stoops, etc., but not for garages, footings, anything that was permanent structure. My opinion, after their research, the staff's research, and having looked at the lot, etc., is that basically, as long as this encroachment is not a structure, the old committee, who spent a lot of time, it looks like, researching, that it could be okay. My only comment is that if we decide to allow this with the encroachment agreement, I would like to see a new agreement written for 2024 laws or rules and regulations. So obviously, I think it should be run by legal before we doing anything, because I'd hate to see us have any exposure here. But it looks like from what Thomas Bond has provided and the committee, that this would fall in to an approved or an possible encroachment allowance of being allowed.
Well, based on the easement committee, 1993, and it says that the primary purpose structures, like you were saying, Jan, garages and the foundations, footings, and portions thereof may not encroach onto the utility easement. When I went back and looked at and I did this also with Chris yesterday as well, but we went back and looked at the plans, and the front part of the house, the wall, and the entryway, including the steps leading up to the entryway, that's all in the easement.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It is.
It wasn't clear.
And so for me, based on precedent, like I don't believe it would be prudent to grant this variance because of that. It's clearly stated, and it is true that with these plans that the front of the house, it's just on the existing easement. It's just like right there. It's not necessarily over one of our utilities, but it's right there on it, located right there. And then, but the entryway is definitely within the easement. So I'm just wondering, perhaps they may need to redesign that.
Yeah.
And as far as, just based on precedent, I believe it would be, we need to take that seriously because it could open us up to more other situations throughout the code, which we do know that there are lots out there that it could possibly just open up a Pandora's box for all the so-called unbuildable lots out there that we have our easements that we're not currently using, but people may be requesting.
I'm interested in what you said about the entry, the steps into it being on the easement. Our photo doesn't show that. How do you?
I was looking, and I should have taken that from the last board packet. I don't have the,
I will share my screen. I think I have the plans. Okay, so there on the screen, the red dash there indicates the easement. And you can see this area of the structure does appear to be encroaching upon that. I don't know if that's the entry. I guess that is the entryway. And then there's part of a wall here in addition to this deck. And
Okay, so it's not just the porch that we were being, I believe last month.
Yeah, last month we were primarily focused on what is above the electric line, which is the screen. And the easement does extend beyond that.
So that doesn't fit the 1993 committees. There's too many foundation structures.
Since Thomas Bond is online here, I'd like to see if he has anything he'd like to make a comment. Thomas?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you? So let me just respond to the comments you guys have just made. What we're proposing is just to build on portions of the easement where there are no utilities, and it's highly unlikely that there would ever be utilities there. The main elements that need to fall within that area are a wooden deck and some wooden steps up to the house. And in the highly unlikely event that anything needed to be done there, those could be constructed. There's only about 40 square feet of the entry that actually encroaches into the easement. And while I tried very hard to design a house that didn't have that problem, the area from the coastal setback from the bluff that's been defined by the Coastal Commission to the backside of that easement is extremely minimal. And so as it is right now, you walk in the front door, you go up the stairs to the main living area upstairs, and that pretty much uses up all that dimension from the easement to the setback line. So for us to pull that entry back in some fashion is extremely difficult, because then the stairs aren't a straight run. They have to double back. It's going to make the stairway highly inefficient. It doesn't work at all with the upstairs plan. And we've really tried very hard to squeeze a small house into the buildable area. But I should say that when the client bought this property about 3 years or so ago, he bought a property which he thought was buildable. And over the course of our investigations, we have found various things that we need to work our way around. And he has spent thousands of dollars, and we have done numerous studies to deal with the coastal and the geological issues and the biological issues and the botanical issues and the wave uprush issues. We worked our way through all of that, and we have positive responses from all those basic entities. And this is basically the only thing yet we need to resolve in terms of being able to build this house. And realistically, once that house is there, it's still going to be set back at the same relative levels as the adjacent houses. It's not like it's going to be popping out into the street looking like it doesn't comply. To the normal eye passing by, it will look exactly like the same type of setback the neighbors have. And quite frankly, we're being really shoehorned into this site because of the nature of the property line. If we didn't have C court and the roadway went straight through, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. But because we have such an odd shaped property and such an exaggerated property line, it makes the site close to unbuildable unless we have a little bit of relief from the county and from you folks to allow us to move the house forward a little bit. I think it's a reasonable request that we're making. I don't think it's likely that this is going to become a precedent, because there can't be hardly any more sites in the whole Shelter Cove area that have this type of issue. So I think the caveat is we would be asking you to approve this because of a highly unusual configuration of the property lines, that neither the house to the north or to the south are impacted in the same way as this is. So we believe this is not an unreasonable thing to do, and we would hope that you would approve this project so that we can move forward.
I do think precedent is important in this decision. To say that this may not open up a Pandora's box for other lots in the cove, that really, if you came out to the cove, you would, and looked at our lots, I think you might change your opinion on that. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I got it. So that easement seems really unusual itself. It seems like an incredibly large easement. I wouldn't be opposed to it if we did run it through legal. I do think we need to cover our funds. I really appreciate the research that Chris did on giving me the history of previous easement changes. I found it rather interesting. So I would be opposed to it. But yeah, I think we need to run it through legal first.
Really don't like doing variances, but I'm kind of in agreement with Mike. It is a large, a large easement without any real obvious purpose. But that's our part. One thing I think Tasha mentioned this, Shelter Cove has lots of lots that probably have similar or maybe even worse problems. But yeah, I can go with it. But again, make sure we cover ourselves a little.
I was just curious at any time we looked into what the economic value was over time of having a structure built there. Just purely speaking for the fire department, we're funded based off property tax on special tax that varies with structures on it, including property tax to the county and then rates that a structure would be paying the RID, and that was looked at long term.
Yeah, I've thought about that. It has been a thought because we want to encourage new homes out here and encourage growth. So, yeah, that's just one of those things. Chris?
Yeah, and I'd like to point out too is that this is an electric easement, and there is an electric line in that easement, and you can see where it's located. So the area that he's talking about, there's right down there. It's unlikely that we would ever need that area outside of where the electric line is.
No, like I said last board meeting, they 45 off the southeast corner of that deck. I think it would.
Yeah, and John just talked about basically cutting this corner of the deck away so that there's more ample room around the electric line in case we ever have to dig into that.
One thing I would like to add to that, next to that, to your question, it isn't that this lot is unbuildable. It's for the size of the lot, they could build a smaller home. And they did purchase this lot as is. So I know we're not the county and I'm not telling them how to design their house, but that front entryway is the foundation's a foundation, you know, and typically we haven't allowed that within our easements. So even if they weren't able to build this particular house, they could build a smaller house. It's not unbuildable.
Can I just interject here for a moment? You know, I think the client has a right to build a reasonable sized house, and because it's a small lot, asking him to build a much smaller house is really an unfair request. I think the house, it's not a particularly large house. It's got 2 tiny bedrooms downstairs and 1 bedroom upstairs. That's not a huge house. And the other bigger point, I think, is that we're basically arguing about an arbitrary line that was put in a plan years ago that was never used by whoever did the utilities. It will never be used for anybody else for any other purpose. So it's really a pointless line on a plan. And the only thing that the folks who did the utilities was that they dipped into that area at the far south end of the project to tie into that existing utility stub up. But other than that, that easement has never been used by anybody, and the people who did the utilities obviously saw that that a direct line from the house to the north to the area towards the south was a straight line, and had no intention of going through that easement. So it's an arbitrary line that really has no meaning other than it has some legal consequences, but it doesn't really have any physical consequences, and that's why I don't think a variance is an unreasonable request when you're asking for a variance to deal with an issue that is really not in any way impacting anybody. So I think it's a reasonable thing to be requesting.
If we grant a variance on this, what happens to that line? Do we move it? Is it still there?
The electric line?
No, the easement line.
It stays.
It stays.
We would just be following an encroachment policy on the easement.
Historically, how that was addressed is that there was a trade-off in the property. On the exhibit of our historically how we've done that is the RD would be granted another location by the requesting party. This particular lot, probably that wouldn't be able to happen because it's too small. And all the erosion that's happened on the backside.
So if we grant this variance and they build there in the easement, what kind of liability do we have going forward?
Well, that goes back to your request to run it by legal. So we would run this encroachment agreement by legal and make sure that we are not held liable if we ever have to dig into that location. For repair.
Thanks for being patient.
It's totally an architect drawing. Boom, move it back. Move it back. I mean, whoever, what's this part? What's this part? It's an architect. I can totally see that it's just an architectural drawing. Boom, there's your 40-foot fixed. Put it on the lot, that fits. You won't lose any square footage. You look at where you can build and you design a house that fits on the property.
But traditionally has been our stance.
There's no public comments, you gotta go to the podium. I agree with the architect's assessment, a lot of these lots are really hard to build. Most of the lots are completely unbuildable either way. There's no Pandora's box. I mean, most lots are straight from down. You never get a septic on them. We're trying to develop tax base. The population base here doesn't support the businesses that are currently here. Tourism is the only thing that keeps the businesses going. And if we don't have a little more population, there are no businesses. I mean, we need more. If there's 100 more houses in the Cove or 200 more, would we even notice it if it was spread out over the Cove? But if there was 5 or 6 more good businesses, it would benefit the community immensely. So we have to allow some variances. The lots were drawn horribly. I mean, the subdivision was done horribly. I mean, that's why the Coastal Commission exists, because of Shelter Cove. So there's got to be a little room. I mean, it's hard to fit houses. There's a lot of reasons why people design things. You can't just say move the house and make it dysfunctional or devalue your property by designing a weird house. So, like you said, you're not hurting nothing. That drawing was drawn, 50 years ago. Let them have the little 40 square feet. It's not that big of a deal.
Any more public comment? Do we want to make a motion on the variance? The motion is actually to approve or deny. I think I might be okay with it if we could get legal to approve it. And I think that's what we're sort of in agreement on here.
Right.
To a certain extent, that if we do approve it, we need to change this motion to incorporate that it would be based on legal review and a good agreement written, so that if for some reason somebody has to get into that area, which John doesn't anticipate having to do. He's been okay with this right from the start, and I kind of trust his attitude on it, and I agree with Nick. We've got to start looking at everything, not just variances. Variances are a lot by lot thing. And I think that if we do make this motion, if somebody wants to do it, it would be based upon approving it with legal approval and a properly written encroachment agreement.
My client would agree to that.
Make a motion to approve the customer request for variance encroachment with an encroachment agreement, with the approval of our legal department saying that we're good to go.
I second the motion.
Kim Plummer,
Aye.
Janet Evans. Aye. Mike Lori,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheen,
No.
motion carries.
Okay, moving on to the next action item. Consider signing a letter of support from the board for Southern Humboldt Fire and Rescue Joint Powers Authority. And to present that, I'll hand off to Nick.
All right, awesome. So while we get Tanner set up with his presentation, so this comes from what I know some of our liaison and some of the fire department members know. A bunch of my spare time or free time, if you want to call it that, is supporting our regional fire department, right? Our regional fire service, which in Southern Humboldt is 17 individual fire departments and companies. You guys drive through almost 6 of them just to get to Garberville. So what you guys see with Shelter Cove Fire is a very small representation of the entire region's fire service capacity. So right now our organizational entity is the Southern Humboldt Fire Chiefs Association, which is a chapter of the Humboldt County Fire Chiefs Association. Humboldt County Fire Chiefs Association represents almost 43 different departments, including Cal Fire Force Service and City Ambulance. So a lot of different entities, all with the same mission of providing fire rescue EMS care to the community members of Humboldt County. One of the things we're running into is what we heard earlier from Ms. Brenner, Ms. Brenner is the overlap of missions, right? And the multiple different entities doing the exact same mission. And so what we're looking at the Chiefs Association is a joint powers authority or joint powers agreement to help combine and get rid of a lot of the redundant work that's going on. For example, all 17 of us right now have different insurance providers, and RID, for example, pays a lot more for our volunteer firefighters than Telegraph Bridge and then Bryceland, who are on different ones. That's just one of the examples. There's many more of what you guys are going to see in the presentation, and the overall goal is to make a more efficient and reliable fire response. So when you guys leave Shelter Cove, you get the same level of care from Shelter Cove all the way to Fortuna. And right now, unfortunately, that's not the case. As soon as you guys drive past Paradise Ridge Road, the capabilities of the next volunteer fire department are dramatically less than Shelter Cove, just due to the staffing, equipment, and training over the last 10 years. So I'm going to pass away to Chief Speed, actually. He's also the fire chief at Telegraph Ridge. And he's going to do a presentation on what the JPA actually is up to this point and what we're going to be asking the board as far as support for the next steps. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. So yeah, sharing the screen sharing is that I don't see on the list in the see here. It says I'm going to start over. Say,
It's not a MacBook.
No. So
There, I'm going. Everybody's spinning right now. I have to re-up and go to the meeting. There you go.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen.
All right. So we got it. You have to mute your speaker. There it is. All right. Well, yeah. So thank you for the introduction. Like you said, in this particular presentation, I have a couple different roles. I'm the fire chief in Telegraph Ridge. I'm part of the Southern Humboldt Fire Chiefs Association. I'm the secretary and part of the strategy and tactics committee. In this particular project, which we'll be presenting as the Southern Humboldt Fire and Rescue Joint Powers Authority. Next. So I'm going to give some background on how we got here. In the Southern Humboldt Fire Chiefs Association, we have a pretty massive span of objectives and guiding outline, strategic outline, and this ties into the Humboldt County Fire Chiefs Association, and us being a chapter of that. So in that, one of the major objectives we identified was that the need for administrative assistance to small districts and fire chiefs. We're talking about volunteer fire service here, right? So this is volunteer energy, both on volunteer district boards, as you know, and also volunteer fire chiefs, which are task saturated, oftentimes with administrative burdens that are increasing in the fire services. So we called the Administrative Assistance Project and applied for the North Coast Resource Partnership Technical Assistance Program to develop that. We did receive funding from that, and I was hired on as the technical assistance provider. I'm the technical assistance provider for the North Coast Resource Partnership. So that's how we got here. We're working with the Strategy and Tactics Committee, which is the primary committee in the Southern Humboldt Fire Chiefs Association who does this specific work and brings it back to the Chiefs Association for review and approval. So that project and the funding was primarily focused to develop this administrative assistance strategy. We did a challenges and needs survey with the departments and districts and companies in our area, and then developed the strategy, the administrative assistance strategy. So in that strategy, what we came to was basically the need to develop a fiscal entity, a regional fiscal entity. Right now, notice mentioned was that we're working under the Humboldt County Fire Chiefs Association, which is a 501c3, and we're a sub-chapter. This is not really an appropriate entity for running a consistent, sustainable program like an administrative assistance program. As well as we have this larger group of objectives and goals that we're trying to achieve that also need this foundation. There is currently no larger regional fiscal entity that would fit this. And so we proceeded to do some research on what could potentially be the best entity for that. In that research, we came across the idea of the Joint Powers Authority, and we developed a exploratory report and basically continued on feasibility studies and a lot of conversation with the fire chiefs. And in our meetings, we did surveys and basically continue to look deeper into it. At this point, we have felt that there was enough positive energy and potential to this to dive deeper in. And we were instructed to develop some draft vision documents on this. That's where we came to this first document here, the organizational structure chart. Some of the chiefs wanted us to like how this may look. And as fire chiefs, we love a good hierarchical structure. So that's where we came up. And you can see here, this is kind of the overlook that we're having of the entire organization. I'm going to break this down into parts. I know it looks kind of small there, so we'll bump it up a little bit here. First thing is that possible related fire district members. I guess it's important to describe, especially to some people here who don't know what a joint powers authority is. We'll start there. This is an organizational structure that is popular in California and especially amongst fire organizations, but it's used for many things. Our particular insurance company that we use as a fire department is also a joint powers authority. RMS, Joint Powers Authority, provide insurance. I know it's cutting out. I hope it's not too annoying. I'm just going to keep going on. So a Joint Powers Authority is brought together by districts, fire districts or special districts. That's just the structure it is. That's what the members come together to create a separate fiscal and government agency.
That's for tall people.
We know that hour, right? Yeah. So in Southern Humboldt, in our area, we have 11 fire-related districts, is what we call them. Some are fire protection districts, some are resort improvement districts, and some are community services districts. But any district that has a fire component is referred to as a fire-related district. These 11 fire districts are the potential members of this Southern Humboldt's Fire Joint Powers Authority. We also have these non-district fire companies, is what they're called. There's 5 of those. We do intend to be as inclusive as possible, and so we would like to integrate those fire companies as well. They can't be official members of a Joint Powers Authority, but we do believe that we can work out in basically an MOU of sorts, to integrate that. So that comes to this next slide where it kind of starts at, where the power, the actual authority comes from for a Joint Powers Authority, and that's these fire districts or special districts, the board of directors, the district chief, and then these come together to create the Joint Powers Agreement, and the Joint Powers Agreement is what creates the authority to develop the Joint Powers Authority, which is a separate agency with all of the powers of its member districts. You can see on the side here, we have our fire companies, and we're proposing a fire company cooperative agreement for that. And the Chiefs Association would basically become an advisory committee to this. And then you get into the actual structure of the Joint Powers Authority itself. And, I think it's important to note right now that this is a massive subject, right? I'm trying to get through kind of quick. It's been a long meeting, and this could go on and on. I'm not going to get too deep into the details because we'll continue this conversation, hopefully. And in saying that too, a lot of what we've developed already, these are ideas because the agreement has not been made yet. This is a way to try to bring the vision out, but all of this is also negotiable and will be developed through the process. So as we try to show the vision, we also want you to remember that this is highly flexible at this point. We have proposed the idea of a set of divisions or programs, right? So that the Joint Powers Authority would be run by a board of directors, just like a district. That would come down to the divisions chiefs committee, and the divisions would be run by a chief. There's 4 divisions would be the administrative division, which would hold basically this program that is kind of propelling this whole process. The training division, the operations division, and the logistics division. We believe these 4 divisions can basically house all of the objectives and strategies, the goals that we developed in strategy and tactics to help the Southern Humboldt Fire culture. Let me kind of break out each one pretty quick here. The administrative division, again, this is
what would house the administrative assistance program that is kind of spurring this process at the moment. It would also be the administrative, it would lead the administration of the Southern Humboldt Fire Joint Powers Authority itself. It's also likely to function as the planning division, which would be the technical aspects of the organization, like incident action plans, GIS mapping, that kind of stuff. So the point of this is that as it's functioning for the administration of the JPA, it is also providing assistance services back to the districts. This is highly needed in many of these fire districts. I would say in this particular circumstance, Shelter Cove is an exception in that you are one of the highest developed districts out of this list. The training division, this is something that we already do on a pretty massive level in the Southern Humboldt Fire Chiefs Association, although it is right now currently broken up. The funding is coming from many different places. The funding will oftentimes come straight through Shelter Cove Fire Department, Bryceland Fire Department, the Humboldt County Prescribed Burn Association, the Toll Restoration Council. We basically put all these little pieces of funding together and coordinate it through the Chiefs Association. It has been working to build a very robust training program right now, but it's not really official, and there's no official entity that is coordinating that. We believe that this Southern Humboldt Fire Joint Powers Authority would be perfect entity for that, and there is considerable funding for this already, and there's more funding to be gotten for sure. This is something that we feel like with the greater captures myth, we can just increase, and it will increase our fire services skills and capabilities in the future. The operations division, operations in fire and emergency, that's where things really get done, as it kind of sounds. We're really excited about this. Is where some of the main programs that we're excited about as far as workforce development. Big part of this vision is the idea of basically developing workforce for our local Southern Humboldt area. As we know, and as this conversation has come up today about strategic planning, this is happening also in our Southern Humboldt area. The economic transfer of who we are, where we're going, what are the next 10 years going to look like. We really do believe that the fire services, fire professional services, could be a pretty significant component of the future of Southern Humboldt, Shelter Cove, economically. We came to this also too through the process. One of our big objectives is recruitment and retention. That's a massive thing in the country. 75% of the response in the country is done through volunteers, but it's having a very large recruitment and retention issue right now, largely due oftentimes to economic challenges. It's hard for people to volunteer when they're struggling to pay their bills. One of the main solutions that we have come up with that we really try to develop and push is by developing those professional service opportunities for the volunteer firefighters. Shelter Cove has been a great guiding light in that, a very successful light in that, as has Bryceland Fire. And these grant projects that we're seeing, are really starting to happen. Right now, we have, I think, more professional services for volunteer firefighters than we ever have before in our area. These are opportunities besides CAL FIRE too, which is something to know. We're trying to maintain our local volunteer culture and still develop sustainable ways for people to live here and make money and pay their bills and live the life they want to live. Some of the main functions of that in the operations division, right, are the fuel reduction soft crews. We're seeing that happening right now. There's massive more build out capable for that. This is the way that we're going to take care of our forests, keep trying to stay ahead of those big fires, do that fuel reduction. Prescribed fire services. This is also an enormous opportunity for workforce development in our area. There are huge grant opportunities coming up, and we're going to need enormous capacity to meet those grants. And those projects are either going to get contracted to people outside our area, or we're going to be able to get those jobs for people here. That's what we're trying to do. As Nick mentioned too, the strike team, task force, OES preposition, and coverage. Those are huge professional services opportunities. Right now, Shelter Cove and Bryson are two of the main fire departments who are able to take that opportunity because of being able to run payroll. But firefighters on Telegraph Ridge, on Whitethorn, on these other departments also want to get in on that, but see limitations in the scale of their district and their ability to develop payroll. This is something that we're trying to address. Also, a huge goal in this particular division is a duty officer program, very similar to what Shelter Cove is doing here, but for the Southern Humboldt region. We believe this is a huge component of what could develop exactly what Chief Abe was saying, the services all the way from Shelter Cove, through, so that we can maintain a similar level of service that Shelter Cove has been able to develop. Logistics division is also a very exciting element for us because of a couple main components. Ground support unit or mechanical assistance. In our challenges and needs survey, mechanical maintenance and testing and the whole component that comes with keeping fire apparatus operational is a massive challenge. The challenge also too is that we have to find mechanics who are skilled and capable of doing that and available, right? We compete with CAL FIRE, we compete with the other fire departments all over the area, and oftentimes the services are seem subpar because maybe they don't have skin in the game on our apparatus. We're just a client to them. But this is money that our area spends every year, massive amounts of money. We were looking at, it's very, like the smallest fire districts in our area are spending $15,000 to $20,000 a year on mechanical bills. So, the larger ones, it's even more. We do have a budget for this. That money is going somewhere. We should develop it here. Workforce development, develop our own mechanics, and keep that money local. This also another part of this is our equipment cache. This is something we already have in our building in the Southern Humboldt Fire Chiefs Association. It's been a way that we've been able to organize Measure C funding to better coordinate the resources that are coming in to the departments in need. This will be a perfect long-term sustainable home for that program. So it'll be a Southern Humboldt Fire Cache, and we could replenish our resources much in the same way that CAL FIRE does right now. It's just a way for efficiency and economy of scale. So the three-phase approach to achieving this agreement is why we're here today. We're in phase one, letters of support, and that's what we're doing is we have gone through the level of communicating with chiefs. We are happy to say that we do have Chief Pape's letter of support. He does support this, and we are coming to you as the board of the Resort Improvement District, hoping that you will also offer a letter of support. These letters of support basically are going to communicate who is at the table in the next steps in good faith to negotiate. This is a non-binding document. This is just saying that you see the vision enough, that you do like the idea and you want to see where it's going, and you're willing to go to the next step. The next step would be developing the memorandum of understanding. This is just going to be a very simple contractual document that will describe how we're going to negotiate the joint powers agreement. So it is a next step in commitment, but still non-binding to the agreement. It's just the next step of us agreeing how are we going to do this, basically laying out the development of designees to work on it and getting it a little closer. And then finally, the joint powers agreement itself. That would be the process of the negotiation and coming to the place where all of the members at that point, the potential members who have come to the table, who have signed those letters of support, who have developed the MOU and signed that, are now negotiating for the final agreement. Once that final agreement is signed, then the members are entered into and the Joint Powers Authority is officially formed. So that's kind of the process that we're seeing moving forward. We also do have Supervisor Bushnell's support right now through a letter of support, and she wanted to express that anyone who has questions about her support to go directly to her. She'd be happy to describe her position and why she does support this. And so both these documents, the MOU and the Joint Powers Agreement itself, we have drafted a place to start on those. That has been part of the technical assistance that I've been providing. We are getting close to the end of that technical assistance program right now, and our deliverables, being the administrative assistance strategy, is suggesting that this is the best path forward. Part of that program is pursuing further funding to continue to develop out that program, and now at this point we're developing something much larger. The North Coast Resource Partnership is also currently right now developing a fire enhancement capacity plan program that this is very likely to fit very well into. There is the potential for for more funding to continue on this technical service. So there will be professional help with this. We aren't expecting you to figure this all out and do it. Should we do this and should it happen? The 3 phases of organizational development that we are looking at the very highest level right now would be phase 1, where we are, because of the delicate political situation that this does come into in Southern Humboldt, we are not asking for base funding to develop this. We're not suggesting that districts provide base funding as part of it, which is a normal thing for the creation of the Joint Powers Authority. We are basically suggesting that we do this with the development of non-recurrent funding first as phase 1. We do think that we have enough non-recurrent funding potentials to successfully implement a phase 1, which would be the development of these 4 divisions and the transition, coordination, and management of the already existing programs and projects that we do already have funding and are already happening, and basically building up to the phase 2. Phase 2 would be staff division chiefs and associated functional division programs and the development of base funding. There are different options for that. That obviously would be completely under the negotiation of the member districts and board of directors. And phase 3 would be fiscal operations and staffing based on a mix of base and non-recurrent funding and full-time staffing with sustainable fiscal operations. So we do see that this has the potential to be a long-term significant employer in the Southern Humboldt area. One thing that just is really important to note, and in the area outside, there's been a lot of history about talk of a super district, right, of combining all the fire districts into one. That's historically been an unpopular option. And part of that was because of the hyper-local identification with the specific districts and the maybe attachment to the authority that comes from that. We are honoring that with this. That is a part of why we feel like this does have a lot more potential than the past super district proposals, is because we are not, the Joint Powers Authority would not impose on any of the hyper-local district authority. We would keep that functioning basically as it is for volunteer emergency response. So the fire chiefs in the area would still be the authority. Their entity would still be the authority having jurisdiction, and that would basically continue to function much in the same way it does. The primary purpose of this, the primary objective is to increase the skill, quality, and speed of emergency response. Right? That's always what we're looking for at the Southern Humboldt Chiefs Association. And beyond that, the next one is this development of this of the skilled workforce. We do believe that this is the ability to coordinate together to create an entity that has the capacity to run payroll for professional fire services. We think that this will work hand in hand with the volunteer culture. And actually help develop the volunteer culture. So those who do want to work in fire have an opportunity to, without burdening the small districts to run payroll, to do all of that themselves. But also the volunteers who don't want to, who already have a job they like, they can go and volunteer, and they're not expected to do all of the onerous administrative burdens and things that are right now can be a drag on volunteerism. So that is a huge part of the objective. Also, another part is the assistance to keep these small districts going. You know, they do need assistance to keep going and to bring them up to modern standards of training and qualifications. So in conclusion, I just want to say that I personally think that Shelter Cove is a perfect fitting potential member of this. A lot of the guiding vision of this has already come from your chief and from what the Shelter Cove Fire Department has been able to achieve. I think that those fruits of creating, of supporting a professional chief now have overflowed into the Southern Humboldt community and are building into benefits that are going out into the regional area. And I really hope that you will take this into consideration and support this possibility. To open up any questions to, and definitely open it up to Chief Pate, who has a lot of knowledge on this subject.
First, do you guys have any questions for Tanner on the presentation? Really thorough.
So thank you for, I know this is a lot, but very much appreciated. Yeah.
Fire chiefs sure are good to be of the future.
I know.
It's usually like small compared to the other stuff we got to deal with. So let's have a break. Yeah, I just wanted to say that this has been in the works for a long time, and we had talked about when I came on with Shelter Cove Fire, we talked about our budget quadrupling and what that was going to mean to our workload. Well, we're about 20 times over that now with the grants and the other programs that we've been doing. Just yesterday, I had to ask poor Tony to cut checks 4 different times because of the payroll that we're taking on for the out-of-county programs and what those guys are doing. So we have already expanded past the R&D capacity at the fire chief. We haven't increased staffing in the office at all. By bringing me on, we actually increased the workload that we're capable of without increasing what we needed on the back end, right? So this is a huge part of that. We've said that Shelter Cove doesn't necessarily need the JPA. We can operate how we did, but that was 5-10 years ago. If we want to continue to expand in the future and create jobs in an economy and an entire region of safety within the fire service, we need another entity to be a part of. It's not going to come from the county. The county has no interest in providing fire rescue. It's not in their mandate. They have to provide EMS and law enforcement, not fire rescue. CAL FIRE has been on staff at Bourne Station for the majority of the summer, and BLM is on staff as well right now. Matola Station is on staff due to maintenance issues with their water lines. Garberville has been down staff for CAL FIRE majority of the summer as well, just due to the fire activity in the area. We're seeing more and more a lack of resources available, and the volunteers are volunteers. The economy has changed in Southern Humboldt. We have an amazing volunteer base because a lot of them were business owners. They created their own hours. They could volunteer whenever they wanted. Real jobs hinder volunteerism quite a bit. So we've seen that in Shelter Cove, and I think we've been less affected than other departments that have seen the majority of their volunteers have to go back to work to set hour jobs, not that they weren't working before. So please, as the community goes as well, in my opinion, you're only going to benefit from this. Again, as soon as you drive past Paradise Ridge Road up on top of the hill, you're into another district with one of the jurisdictions. So we help as much as we can with those districts, and we've been helping through the association to increase our training. We've got 10 new Type 6s coming for other departments. And Tanner and the admin service has been a huge part of helping develop these. But it is a lot more work, than what we're at right now. And this is going to be a huge help with that. So I fully support it. I'm excited to see where it goes in the coming future.
I got something. The thing that stood out to me the most was this hiring a mechanic for maintenance on these trucks. I mean, that could be a benefit to us just right there alone.
Yeah, I was doing brakes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm retired.
And I don't think Tim can do brakes anymore, so we're gonna he probably is.
He just sits there and watches me do it, yeah.
But no, I would support this 100%. Absolutely.
There are a lot of things I can think to say about this, and all of them would be good. A regional approach to fire safety, emergency call services, it's way overdue. It really is. I'm impressed with the amount of work and organization that's gone into this. Really am. It's good work.
Just echoing what they've said so far is 100% for this. It's definitely needed for the greater good of the Southern Humboldt community, and that's what Shelter Cove is a part of. And I think that helps foster that community engagement with the other Whitethorn, Bryson, Telegraph Bridge, all of that. Yeah, I mean, fires don't have a boundary, so we need everybody to be trained up to the best level as possible, even our small volunteer fire departments that need help.
Any public comment on this before we vote? Okay, could I have a motion that we will move forward with the letter of support?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move forward with the letter of support for the JPA.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Janet Evans,
Aye.
Mike Solari,
Aye.
Dave Summer,
Aye.
Joshua Sheen.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you again for all the work.
I'm just gonna say too, open invitation, Nick and I both like to nerd out on this a lot. We talk a lot about this. It goes so deep and it's a really fun subject. If you ever want to talk more about any of the details, feel free to hit us up at any time.
Okay, thank you.
We'll move on to action item 3. Consider adoption of resolution to address past due accounts. So this is another carryover action item from previous board meetings where we've been discussing closed past due accounts and how to address them. Earlier in the packet, you could see past due encompasses a quarter of our monthly pie here on billing. So it's a sizable amount we're talking about. At the regular board meeting last month, the board continued discussion on how to handle the district's number of closed past due accounts, following a report from District Legal Counsel, LCW. Most of the discussion revolved around the single most egregious closed past due account of almost $22,000, $21,000, which, as previously noted, accounts for roughly 74% of the sum of all closed past due accounts. At the conclusion of the discussion, the board issued a few directive actions. One of the board's directives was for staff to send a demand letter to the property owner of the largest closed past due account for full payment of the account or face a judgment lien lawsuit, as recommended by LCW. Staff sent this letter last month and stipulated in the letter that if payment is not received by the end of August, the district will follow through with filing the judgment lien. To date, we have not received payment on that. The board also asked staff to seek out the estimated cost for filing a judgment lien against the property owner for that account. And I reached out to LCW for that estimate. They replied in a series of emails I quoted here. Ultimately, the costs can vary greatly depending on how active the property owner determines to be in the litigation. For example, if he elects not to respond to the complaint, the district will be able to obtain the default judgment lien without much expense. But if he answers the case and defends himself, the costs will increase significantly because more work will be required to obtain a judgment. LCW also went on to clarify that a judgment lien can only be recorded after the district obtains a judgment in a lawsuit, which can be very expensive, they write. There are a wide range of potential estimates for a collections case depending on how active the landowner is in the case, ranging from a few $1,000s to significantly more if the case goes to trial, likely much more than the landowner currently owes the district. Based on this, and because collections actions are not typically within LCW's scope, they recommend the district either direct a collections agency, in this case, I've included the CBA collection agreement, which is the collection agency that Humboldt County uses for their closed past due accounts. LCW says use them or or another collections agency to file the lawsuit or contract with a local firm that specializes in collections actions for this work. LCW, of course, are always happy to assist and represent the district in any way possible, but they feel that this is the best and most cost-efficient approach for the district under these circumstances. They further recommended that the district utilize the collections agency to take its efforts to collect, including potentially filing a lawsuit against the property owner on behalf of the district. Finally, the board also directed staff to create a resolution for referring closed past due accounts to a collections agency or agencies. This policy would apply for existing and future past due accounts that are delinquent more than 60 days according to district ordinance number 69. A delinquent account is defined as one that a customer has not paid after 19 days from issuance of the original bill. District staff will also work with the collections agency to collect past due accounts as applicable. Attached to this agenda item is an example of a contract with the collections agency for reference. After researching a few other collection agencies, their proposed commission is standard for the industry. Also attached to this agenda item is the draft resolution for signature. So just to refresh, 35% of the past due account the collections agency will take if they are successful in collecting it, or 45% if it has to go to legal to a lawsuit. So the financial impact is potential recovery of lost revenue from collecting from closed past due accounts. Otherwise, they just sit there and remain on the billing. And so the recommendation is to pass the resolution 2415 to refer past due accounts to a collections agency. And I also wanted to add in that I do work with customers frequently, monthly, according to our district policy on payment plans. So this is not an immediate thing. But I wanted to reiterate that.
Yeah, it's basically a tool for you to use going forward with, it gives the staff some way of collecting and without having to bring this back to the board all the time for different things. I think it leaves it a little bit more at your discretion along with the payment plans that you've been setting. It just gives you another tool in the toolbox, basically, which is needed. We need to collect these old accounts and write off some.
I like it.
I like it too, but looking at the actual resolution, there are a couple things. There are some words that maybe should be added into the first sentence or two, but the main one is the general manager is authorized to use his discretion to determine which accounts will be sent to a collection agency. I think that should be automatic. We should just have a rule. If you fall into this category, you go to collection. Then Chris wouldn't be accused of being favoritism or
Bias.
Yeah. I think it should just be automatic. I think we should change that to
If we went automatic, there would have to be some type of a number.
right.
And that leaves it up to him. He'll figure out, how much it's costing us and if it's really beneficial for us to go that route. That's why they came up with this like this. We talked about that last
And
week. It was hard to come up with a number.
it is. Okay.
Some of the smaller ones aren't worth
Right.
the aggravation for the staff and the paperwork to do. But it does give the staff another thing to
Another
use
tool.
to collect these past due accounts, particularly as some of them grow fairly large. But
It doesn't take away the GM's ability to make payment plans. And we're not talking about accounts that maybe they wait till they get their shut off notice to pay their bills. I know we have that, but that doesn't really, you won't be sending them to collection agency before that posting would be happening, correct?
This is for the closed, like
Just
once
for the
they
closed,
shut
yeah.
off. After.
Okay.
yeah, after.
Yeah, I do.
Any public comment? Okay, do we have have a motion to move ahead with this resolution?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to pass resolution 2415 to refer past due accounts to the collection agency.
I second the motion.
Roll call. Connie Bevan. Aye. David Zimmer.
Aye.
Mike Solari.
Aye.
Jeffrey Jane.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item. Consider applicants to fill the board member vacancy left by the resignation of Jack Hargrave and make a recommendation to the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors. Notice of board vacancy has been posted since July 22nd due to the vacancy created by the resignation of Jack Hargrave. The vacancy will be filled by appointment at the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors meeting on August 27th. Applications will be presented today, and the district board will make a recommendation to the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors. So we do have one applicant. Recommendation to recommend the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors to fill the remainder of the four-year term vacancy.
Jeff, did you want to come up and speak at all? Hear our applicant. I mean, usually we hear from.
Sucker.
Bad start. I would say that, one, I'd be honored, but also that I think that with my background, formal education and knowing, being on two boards, Scarf and Scapoa, I kind of have the pulse of the community. I want to say that I would do my very best, without bias, that it's for all of Shelter Cove, and that's the only reason that I would want to be on RID. It's because of the big picture. I want to keep Shelter Cove vibrant. I want really the potential of RID to increase revenue, utilize and minimize costs, and make it as vibrant. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Jeff. Any questions for Jeff or anybody from the board?
Not for me, I've already asked one.
I'll make a comment. Jeff has been on all these other two boards, and I feel like he really has been looking for a way to get involved in the community, and I think this is a good thing to do. I recommend it.
Any other comments? Public comment? Any public? Well, then let's have a motion to recommend to the county that Jeff be appointed to fill Jack Hargrave's position. It's a paragraph, Mike.
Hold on, I'm working on it.
I know.
I'll make a motion to recommend Mr. Jeff Hildreth to the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors to fill the remainder of the four-year vacancy of Jack Hargrave to represent the RED board at the August 27th Board of Supervisors meeting, and authorize staff to forward the recommendations and all applications to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration.
I second the motion.
Roll call.
Oh my God.
Joshua Bouchane. Aye. David Summer.
Aye.
Janet Evans. Aye. Mike Solari.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And you can go up to the county if you want to talk to them yourself too. Present yourself at their board meeting too. I believe Tasha did that. Didn't you? Yes.
Okay, the next action item is to consider modifications to district policy 5030 board meeting conduct. Staff have reviewed and updated district policy 5030 board meeting conduct with a few minor modifications, including edits for grammar and redundancy and reduction of the public comment periods during board meetings from 5 minutes to 3. The recommendation is to approve modifications to district policy 5030. Any questions?
That's for me. Straightforward.
Although I personally do like the 5-minute time, because I do like giving people their opportunity to speak their piece. I do think the 3 minutes does go more in alignment with how the Humboldt County supervisors run their meetings and what time they give. And because it will help, it could help us shorten our time, our meeting times. We've been having super long meetings lately, getting into the weeds.
It's to bring it in line, but we also have the discretion. If somebody is speaking to the issue and we want to keep hearing more of what they have to say, we do have the discretion within that policy to allow them to continue to speak. It's just to basically align almost all the other special districts in the county. Yeah. Limited to 3 minutes is pretty much consistent. So. Any comments, questions?
So on the discretion, is it a board vote on a discretion, or can one person want to hear it?
I think that one board member wants to hear somebody, Arlen. I think that's pretty much what we meant by discretion, so that, maybe somebody doesn't want to hear you on the board, but somebody else does, and they have we all have the same rights. Even if I'm president and I've got that gavel, we all have the same rights up here. So if we wanted to hear you, go on. But it's to I'm trying to keep things focused on the motions and the items that are on topic, because I have noted some of these meetings that have gone on till 1:30, we're getting off topic and we're getting in the weeds, not only the public, but all of us as well. And it's important if we're going to, that we stay on topic with public comment. But certainly if you're talking to the issue and somebody wants to hear more of what you have to say, we're not going to buzz you or beep you off the thing. We'll let you go for a few minutes longer within reason. Yeah, we're the next part. Okay, anybody want to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve the modifications to District Policy 5030 board meeting conduct.
I'll second that.
You go, Chester Machine? Aye. David Summer?
Aye.
Janet Evans?
Aye.
Mike Solori?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so the next action item is sort of a paperwork one. So it's to consider amendment to Western Area Power Administration contracts. 22 SNR 02789, 22 SNR 02790. The Resort Improvement District signed contracts with Western Area Power Administration in 2022. Within the contract, it was disclosed new rates for the portfolio manager services in Exhibit B, contract 22 SNR 02789, and to the scheduling services coordinator of Exhibit A, contract 22 SNR 02790, would apply beginning January 1st, 2025. And you can see the attached agreement and cover letter from WAPA sent via email July 31st, explaining the amendment. The term of the agreement is effective until superseded by another amendment or termination of the contract. The interesting point about this one in our investigation is that there's actually a decrease in service charges for the term of the agreement, a decrease of $361.91 a month for portfolio manager services, and a decrease of $1,373.82 per month for scheduling services coordinator. And I also reached out to our WAPA contracts and energy services manager, who said in an email that per the contract, the exhibits go into effect even if they aren't signed. So it's kind of a protocol here, but we'll sign it. So the motion is to authorize the general manager to sign the amendment to the WAPA contracts.
It might not mean anything or be important, but I would like to see these dated. There's no date on these And just so we know when it happened. But if they're going to do it, no matter what.
I'll add dates and when it's signed. Sounds like it'll be a digital signature, which will be automatically dated.
Okay.
I like that, it's cheaper.
Yeah, me too. Any public comment? Okay, can I have a motion?
Certainly. I'll make a motion to authorize the general manager to sign the amendment to the WAPA contracts 22 SNR 02789 and 22 SNR 02790.
I second the motion.
Roll call. David Summer,
Aye.
Janet Evans. Aye. Mike Solari,
Aye.
Patrick Machine. Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. To consider unbudgeted expense of $68,413.70 for fire department apparatus building construction. Also $20,000 additional for utility road patch repairs. So regarding the fire department apparatus building, I can read this one. Due to delays in the planning and building process of the new fire department apparatus building, which is right behind the windows there. Construction was delayed into the current fiscal year. The project timeline is affecting this fiscal year's budget. Of the $100,000 that were allocated in last year's budget, $31,586.30 was spent. And to complete the project, $68,413.70 needs to be added to the 24-25 fiscal year budget. Somehow got deleted when we redid the budget, so we needed to put that in. And also, an additional $20,000 needs to be allocated to the utility road patch repairs line of the fiscal year 24-25 budget to cover the cost of the multiple year deferred patch repairs that were conducted recently. We had anticipated a smaller amount than what turned out to be, so we wanted to get it all done.
Yeah, this is money that we didn't spend last year, right? And it's just has really been sitting there. It's not a case of
That's
new money.
correct. Yeah, it's an unbudgeted expense in this year's budget, but it was funded last year. So the money's sitting there in the fire department's account, just get moved over. That was my mistake. I went to go pay a bill and realized it wasn't on this year's budget line, but the budget line from last year was.
That's not.
Hopefully September will have that. Keep saying that every year.
We're committed now.
Anybody have any questions on this?
No, I think that $20,000 utility road patch, I mean, that comes from deferred maintenance. We haven't been keeping up on it. And so moving forward, definitely recognizing what's going to be needed in next year's budget.
And the patches that I've seen have been really well done, and that's kind of a rare thing here. I like it.
Yeah, it wasn't just a shovel full of stuff thrown in there. They did a good job. I watched them from my deck.
By my house, have you?
Okay. Public comment on this? Okay, Mike, what do you think?
Of course. I'll make a motion to approve the unbudgeted amount of $68,413.70 to complete the fire department apparatus building and $20,000 to complete the utility road patch repairs.
I second the motion.
Roll call. David Summer,
Aye.
Janet Evans. Aye. Mike Solari.
Aye.
Patrick Machine. Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, for our last action item, I'll hand it off to the chief.
Yeah, so this is formation of a bank account. So I believe it's in Umpqua for fire department funds specifically. So what has been happening is when the fire department gets the tax from the county, it goes into the county account for fire department public safety tax. That public safety tax, when we take it out, right now there's only one bank account to put that in, and it's a mix of everybody's account. So for the accounting clerk to keep track of that,
it's done, basically either on a form or a sticky tab or something. And then now with us bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants and OES assignments, it's a necessity to have a separate account for the fire department and we can put our funds into. So right now we have over $100,000 in cash account, and they're just trying to keep it separate from the rest of the RID stuff. So when we start going into our auditing processes, it will clean it up as well, and there's a lot you do cash use and then pull money out of the county account. So that's basically what it is. Very similar to what we did for the USDA and the Cal Fire grant at the last meeting.
I got nothing.
Questions that it's needed.
It's needed, but I was also thinking, and it's not in this, but I kind of like it for next month as an action item, because I believe we can't just add it to this, but I think for the USDA grant checking account, that Chief Nick ought to be a signer on it as well, because he's the one spending the money and knows where it's going. And I feel for audit purposes, he can audit that account as well and just have some power over it. If Chris isn't here, somebody else isn't here, and they don't know. I mean, because Mike, I believe, is the signer, but he's not going to know what's been done. And, could be Nick off on an assignment and Chris on vacation or something. And, we just need another person on that I think is aware of it. As a board member, we can sign checks, but we don't really know. We trust everything that Tony puts behind it, but we really don't know, is that due right now or could it wait for a signature, those kind of things. I think it just cleans things up a little bit. So if we could put that part on for an action item next month.
The grant allows for 2 signers.
Is that all?
I don't think. We check.
Yeah, check.
Yeah.
Check and
Or the
see.
bank account.
Right.
The grant has no stipulation on that. I'm already the project organizer for it.
Right on.
The bank may have issues with multiple signers.
Right.
And then whatever our in-house policy would be. But yeah, I have no problem being added as a signer for anything. It won't change the operation unless there's an emergency where either Chris or the RID board signer is able to do that. Yeah, what's coming more is our personnel checks for like the OES assignments on different days, weekends, or whenever the guys come back. So I think it's definitely warranted, and it kind of goes back into the organizational structure discussion that we had last month too. That'll be a part of filling that as well.
Agree totally with that.
You could take me off if you'd like. I won't hurt my feelings one bit.
No, you'll be on this board, Mike.
You want? Would you like a motion?
Yes, I would like a motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution.
Oh, public
Oh,
comment.
public comment,
Sorry.
sorry.
We're getting so far into this.
Oh, perfect.
Anybody else want to get signed?
I want to give you a break on that motion. I think it's a great idea, but I'm also going to say, just on the standpoint of the county alone, it's going to save us time. It's its own entity, and it's just so much easier to have your own account to do it.
Thanks, Jeff.
No more public comment? Okay, I'm up. All right, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2416, approving the opening of a new account with Umpqua Bank and authorizing signatures to sign for banking transactions upon the new account.
I second the motion.
Roll call. Janet Evans.
Aye.
Mike Solari.
Aye.
David Summer.
Aye.
Patrick Shane. Aye. Motion carries.
And the meeting is adjourned at 12:10.